Hello,
Hello.
we're live. So I'm just actually checking, making sure it's been broadcast out there to people, and it has been. So, hi, and welcome to season 5 of Red Dwarf. And back with us again is Sadako24.
Hello. Hi.
So, we've done our rewatches.
Yeah.
So, what did you think of it? On the whole, we'll do an overview of what the season. What did you think of this season in comparison to the previous four?
I think it's probably my favorite of the seasons. I think it's probably the most. It's the one that feels the most complete. I think it's like like my conception of Red Dwarf. I think it's like this has it. If you know what I mean. This is peak Red. I think this is peak Red Dwarf. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's funny. I think it's definitely at its height in season 5.
Yeah.
But I think for me, it's got one of my least favorite episodes in it as well from the whole 5 seasons.
Okay.
It's still funny, but it's not one that I rewatch often. Anytime I'm watching it, if I'm cut for time, I'll skip quite happily. But we'll discuss that when we get to it.
Okay.
It has also got one of my favourite episodes of all time, so balances.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Well, actually, it's got a couple of my favourite episodes of all time, I must admit. There is 2 in this that hit my top 5 every single time. So
I think I guess which 2, but I'm not too sure about the least favourite.
Well, I think everybody's favourite 2 are on this season.
Yeah.
But I suppose we'll cover them when we get to them. But start, how did you think of episode 1, Hollow Ship?
It's kind of the odd one out, isn't it? Because most of the stories this season are kind of darkness and jeopardy kind of thing, and this one's kind of just this is the light romantic one where there's no villain. It's just it's kind of Rimmer getting almost everything he wanted.
It's a Casablanca throwback again.
Indeed, yeah.
But this was actually meant to be the second episode, but they decided that it was a stronger episode for bringing in people who hadn't watched it before.
Fair enough. Oh, I didn't know that.
They bumped that forward because I think they were going to put Inquisitor or Terraform as the first one. I can't remember what one of those two, but they thought that because of the darker tones, it might actually put people off.
Yeah.
So what they did was they put Hollow Ship because it's light-hearted, funny, and got enough sci-fi in it to make it interesting. And accordingly, it worked because accordingly, their viewership throughout the rest of the season went up.
Yeah.
So it did what it was meant to do. And it's a similar idea as Camille. They put it forward because they looked at it and thought it was a stronger episode, so put that first.
Yeah.
So, and I must admit, when I first saw it, I thought, good. What's popping up? What's dinging in my machine? I must have left everything switched on. It's my emails. I try and switch everything off so there's no dings and clangs and stuff like that. But when I first saw it, it had Don Warrington in it. So it automatically became this is going to be fun.
That is the highlight scene, isn't it? When
it is
him and List have that face off.
Yeah. Binks to Red Dwarf. Binks to Command. We have what is a mechanoid. Mark 4000, and then a feline species, and what a human barely.
Or a close approximation, he says.
Approximation, but it's basically just the whole the go between the Lister and Don Warrington's character. I just thought was superb, and even the bit with the cigarette at the end.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't meant to do that. He actually just did it as part of just the thing. And you see in the outtakes, he sort of goes, "What did I do?"
I remember that from the Smeg Ups tape. He spelled out. Why did I do that?
Accordingly, I can understand it. And I was sitting there when I first saw him doing it. I thought that must have tasted disgusting, and didn't realise until I'd actually seen the outtakes and the Smeg Ups and stuff like that. he wasn't meant to do it. He just did it because he was in the zone for that scene, and it actually worked. But I must admit, with Don Warrington in it, it was just superb. It's the same he wasn't in later on with the other characters. You only saw him at that one bit. But those things, they had 2,000 crew.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't actually just have the 3 crew members just constantly popping in and out. But what did you even things like the way the captain introduced himself? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was quite well done because he was accommodating. He was a bit more accommodating than most, but he was still like, well, he still had that arrogance, but he was accommodating.
Yeah, basically the arrogance and pushing his hair back and the cream of the crop.
And in a way, it kind of gave Rimmer the idea that he had an in here, that he could that if he kind of sucked up to these people, he might get what he wants.
Yep. But even the fact that Chris got to play fun characters with the mind melding, and all with the glasses down, and even I don't know how many times I've seen it. I still can't pronounce the substance that he or the whatever it was, the quadricadecadecrin and stuff like that. I'm sitting there thinking, how the hell did he remember that? Even if he made it up, it actually sounded like a real shape. I think it was a shape he was describing.
Must have been like some kind of variation of the octagons kind of thing.
Aye, it sounded like a multi-dimensional shape. And I'm sitting there, I've watched it multiple times, and I think even if it was written out in front of me, I wouldn't have been able to get it right. But it just it flowed quite well.
Yeah.
So, but I think Chris had a fun, but then again, a few of them he had fun in.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it was a poignant one, wasn't it? Because this was like, I mean, previous season ended on Meltdown, where he was just. I think that is Rimmer at his most loathsome, isn't it?
Yes. And then they bounced it back to give him a bit of a sentimental side.
Yeah, because it's Nirvana Crane. She's the one who sees the good in him, and she says, "Look, beneath all your noses, there's someone good in there." And I think that was a quite sweet scene.
Yeah, Jane Horrocks. She was actually really good in it, I must admit.
Yeah,
but even the silly parts in it, like you noticed the hologram symbol.
Yeah. Oh, the one with the
with the circle around it.
Yeah,
because they mentioned he was a Mark 1, so I'm assuming they're later.
They are, because I mean, basically they must be from a time beyond when, beyond when Red Dwarfs were created. Because even Crichton, he's from a few centuries ahead of Red Dwarf, because he was like part of the Nova 5. But even he's saying even he's the one who knows about the holo ship, but he says, but in my time it was still just a prototype.
Yes,
it was just they hadn't even created it yet, but it was
and they actually says they're the cream of the crop, so they're the top of the line holo, so it's the best of the best. And so saying based on that, the hologram symbol with a circle on it implies they are the advanced model. But did you notice in a later episode there was another symbol, a similar symbol?
I'm trying to think. Oh, Back to Reality. The
replacement crew basically had that symbol. So they implying that after 2 years or 4 years in the game, they've upgraded the software.
Maybe
they had Rimmer as a Mark 1 hologram, and then with the new ones getting in, he had the upgraded symbol.
Yeah.
But then again, you also had Crichton, who didn't have a head like a car press had worked on it. The guy actually played Crichton, just looked as if he had his head shaved.
Yeah, I think it's almost like they're trying to imply that the only reason Crichton looked like that in their version of the game was because that's what Jake Bullet looked like.
Yeah, which I must admit I did love that name.
Yeah.
But
hello, Wendy. Wendology, sorry.
Yes, when basically she's correct. The Hollow Ship is a decent story for Rimmer, and I must admit, it's a fun story for Rimmer. It allows to show after Meltdown last season how he has got a nice side.
Yeah.
Even though he wants everything his way, he will give it up for in the right circumstances.
Well,
he does give it up. He just goes, "Really, I said that."
Well, that's the thing. He grows, doesn't he, from this episode? Because
he does. Because you even look at it when he actually says at the end, "We are not apart. We'll just not be together." And then he walks out and goes have to say, "Really, I just said that," because it was the comment. So it was the same idea as Camille. It was a very similar episode to Camille.
Yeah.
The Camille one was Crichton getting to do his Casablanca scene, and this one was Rimmer getting to do his Casablanca scene. So and it always bounces back to Casablanca. So in effect, that's 5 seasons and 3 references to Casablanca.
Yeah. And
so I think the Grant Naylor, one out of them, loved Casablanca.
Yeah, I mean the chemistry between him and Jane Horrocks is great because they don't have that many scenes together. I mean, they actually like they had to cut a lot out of this episode. Like I think it overran because you see some of the deleted scenes. You see there's a lot more going on when she first offers him, "Would you like to come and have sex on my deck?" And he's like he's about to refuse, and then she kind of persuades him, and it's like she really kind of wants. So I mean, I feel like if only some of that had been kept in, if only they maybe extended the episode, so
even on the DVD, have the extended episode of a couple of them would have been fun.
Yeah,
and especially that one, I think the extended episode would have given it a better storyline.
Yeah,
but even the fact is, when they're in the thing, she says it was like Chinese, a lot of portions.
Yeah.
It was small portions, but a lot of them.
Yeah.
I must admit, some of the lines in that story were they were funny at Rimmer's expense, but they were also poignant at Rimmer's expense. So they were sort of slagging him, but sort of making him feel better or act or being presented as a slightly better character when he's in the right environment. So he's with Commander Crane, and she brings out the best in him, whereas everybody else brings out the worst in him.
Right. What do you think it is that's different about Nirvana that she sees something in Rimmer? Because I've got a bit of a theory.
I don't know. I initially thought it was a similar idea to, because they were doing the Casablanca, it was a case of she saw something that she hasn't seen because everybody's the best of the best.
Yeah.
And he was like a throwback, something that she has missed from her prior life.
Yeah.
That's the way I looked at it, but I don't know. What did you think?
Similar lines to you. I think it was like partly the way he kind of when they went had sex. It was almost a kind of there was because I think with him there was a longing for it because he obviously, he's never had much luck, and so he kind of made that moment last. And then there was also the bit where he kind of opened up to about, look, I'm a failure. That's something she's not used to. She's not used to that kind of honesty because everyone's kind of all business, and he's that human moment, and that's kind of
that's actually a really good point. Is it because of who he is or what he represents?
Yeah,
because as she says that, what do you not? He said, "What do you normally do?" We usually talk about work. Yeah. He says, "Sorry, I just said Geronimo."
Geronimo, yeah.
I didn't really speak a lot. All I said was Geronimo, but it's just a case of, and I think that's why she fell for him, because it wasn't what she was used to. It was something different. It was something special. It wasn't just another
Mhm.
function
Yeah.
meant something, and I think that's why it went. And I'm just laughing at the geek inside. Sorry, I said earlier, I don't know if you caught it, that one of the episodes in this one is my least favourite of the first 5, if not, well, right up until season 9.
Right. Okay.
Yes, the one episode in here, although there has funny bits in it, it is definitely. It's sorry.
All right.
I'll just have to apologise for it when we get to it.
All right.
So,
Is there anything to nitpick here? I got a 1.
I don't really think there was a lot to nitpick in this one.
No.
There was.
No. But
I don't know. Did you find anything in nitpick on it?
the only one thing I thought was when they were going through the when Lister was going through the replacement holograms, I thought it should have been a quick decision of he should have brought back a Chansky. But
Yes.
now I'm wondering, did he go through them because he said, look, I'm not ready to seek it. Look, I don't know if Rimmer really is going. I don't know if I want to seek a Chansky again and then have a say, no, Rimmer's back. So he maybe put that deliberately put that off and just decided they'd go through the replacements.
There is a nitpick now you've mentioned it.
Yeah. Oh,
they did it again. They did something again which they did in the past, right, which contradicts what they said.
Oh.
They said they can only maintain one hologram at a time.
At
Me squared. They said they could shut all the stuff down and keep the 2 of them running. So when they get rid of the first hologram in Me squared, or the second hologram, depends what one you think they actually kept and not. How did they not actually use it to bring another crew member back? But they also did it when where he comes in, and one of the holograms they're using to replace him is still. And what was the other one? Was it Parallel Universe? It was one of the other ones. There was a second hologram. Can't remember. But they basically, with Me Squared, they said they could cut down all the non-essential functions to have the 2 of them. So because they didn't, once they get rid of him, they didn't have a second one. You know what I mean? So I thought it was a case of, right, they've decided not to, but they still use that when it's needed. So they used it with.
Well, I mean, I think as long as it was only for about like a 10-minute period, they could have 2 at once, maybe.
Aye.
And
because that was remember with in Quarantine, they need to shut him down to bring the Dr. Hillestrand back.
Yeah.
And they said they could do a timeshare.
Yeah.
So in effect, they're saying they couldn't keep 2 again. So they would have to timeshare. So because that's what Rimmer was saying. Oh, you're going to shut me down because you've got someone more important. They said we could timeshare. He says, I'm not a holiday home in the Algarve. Yeah. So it's implying that they can't keep them again. Just by that line. But in this one, you had to 2 of them on again. But it's a wee nitpick. It was still a funny joke. The fact that she would prefer to be dead than be a hologram with the guys. I can understand why.
And I think it kind of also kind of suited because in a way she had a bit more of the attitude of the Enlightenment crew of look, I don't want to spend time around these riffraff. And I think
I like the fact that she says, and by the smell of it, he's eat a lot of curries. It wasn't by the look of it, so there's curry stains. It was by the smell of it. He's eat a lot of curries, and you can just imagine. But see, to me, the one thing that disappointed me about that scene. Why they didn't have Peterson or Chen or one of his friends that he would spend the time with? I can understand why not Peterson because they were always drinking together, or Chen or Selby, they were always drinking together. But why not bring someone he already knew and was friendly with? If not Kachansky because he didn't want Kachansky on board because he couldn't put up with seeing her dead. spirit that he couldn't touch. But why go one of his friends? That's what I always got. I can understand why. Basically, they want to bring new characters in, and it was because they weren't going to bring them back. They just cycled through them. But anytime they went back in time or something like that, the characters would pop in. So even just within the part of the interview, they could have brought one of the guys back and actually. They could have actually says, if do you want to do it? Sure, we'll do it, and we can have a drink and stuff like that. And then Rimmer doesn't go, so it falls through.
Dan Powers has got a good point. It is a bittersweet ending because Rimmer gets so close and he kind of gives it up. It didn't work out for him in the end, but he changed as a result. Yeah,
and he does. He actually becomes, as I said, a better person. It's his Camille, his Casablanca moment.
Yeah.
And even though, similar to the Casablanca moment, even when he actually realizes what he did, it's a case of he can't believe he did it. He said those exact words.
Do you think
we're just not apart?
Do you think maybe we should have seen Rimmer at his station after he's learned and he's trying to kind of integrate with the crew and he just knows something's missing without her?
Yeah,
maybe not have him resign immediately, kind of thing. Yeah.
I think it would have been better to see him failing up.
Yeah.
Because when he was in that position, they're all the top of the top, and he's lost his mind meld thing.
Yeah.
So he is himself got that position. So how can he actually do it? Because we know he failed these astronavigation exams.
Yeah, you know what? I think the great thing about that mind patch scene is that it's given him that really insufferable personality, and they contrast that by the fact that just how much he is beating Nirvana, and he's just so cavalier about it. And it's like when he returns to being himself, it's almost like he's saying, "Look, if you graft this onto him, Rimmer's not Rimmer anymore." And and in a way, showing him in competition with Nirvana showed that he can't turn himself into what he's not, kind of thing.
Yeah, and also the fact is, there's somebody worse than Rimmer out there because there's someone who's brainy, intelligent, and insufferable.
Yeah,
because we've seen an alternate of Rimmer if he was successful. But he wasn't brainy and condescending and stuff like that. He was.
Well, it's like I said last week. The thing about Ace Rimmer was that he was an underdog and he came up, but he never forgot what it was like to be an underdog.
Yeah, and that's whereas this one, you see another character in the position who is condescending because he knows how intelligent he is. So he is insufferable. So it's not Rimmer. He's more insufferable than Rimmer, which is hard to imagine.
I just love the bit where he's like doing the two computers at the same time, and like and then he shuts over.
Yes, I will do it. Both computers in separate languages, and we're not a problem.
Yeah.
Yes. But even some of the stuff in this episode where things like they've taken Goalpost Head. Quick, let's get out of here before they
bring him back. Yeah.
The cat's always with it. He's basically always spot on with his stuff. They said it a couple of times in this one. Mm-hmm. Something happens to him, and they're going to actually take him away, bring him back. Yeah. So the cat seems to get it, and they started using the jokes. They had always referred to. I think after this, it was a case of, that's a good point. There's only two things against it, sir.
Yeah.
There is no shields and there is no shields. I thought it's so important we had to say it twice.
Yeah.
The rocket pants and stuff like that. Because they hadn't been condescending really to the cat in the past like that.
Yeah.
And I just like they did that.
Yeah, because even though it's a Rimmer episode, like the others get good moments as well. Like, I mean, it's, you see Lister kind of breaking down at the movie at the beginning, showing and it's like that doesn't feel at all unnatural, even though sometimes Lister seems a bit macho. Sometimes you know that he's got that kind of what's that? That kind of he's got a bit of soul to him.
Side. Well, you look at Betty Rubble, and Wilma Flintstone.
Yeah,
episode. The two of them were waxing lyrical and realizing that they would never leave Fred.
Yeah.
And so it was basically, even though they're talking about a cartoon, they were still sentimental enough that it wasn't weird. It wasn't weird when they're realizing that they've got no chance with a cartoon character. Yeah. So, and the fact that they even earlier on they refers to, was it Better Than Life? They were talking about the video games, and they says back to Casablanca, the big bingo back in Beasley, one that how Philistines. So there's a program, there's a movie that even now we still class it as an old classic.
Yeah,
he watches the old classic, so he's no just watching the skin flicks or whatever you would expect a slob of Dave Lister's ilk to watch.
Well, I think this and Inquisitor both have that same theme of, well, Lister, like the core of Lister is, look, he doesn't believe in standards. He doesn't believe that, standards should be put down from on high. He feels like, everyone should have an individual conception of what their worth is and what they want to do with their life. It shouldn't be for anyone else to judge. And, that's kind of...
Yeah. I think that is a good point. He is... sorry, a good point that Wendy put forward, and as you said there, he isn't what you would expect him to be. He has got his exterior, he has got his sentimental bit, he's got his feminine side. He's basically even things like when he used to actually do the Cosmo magazine earlier on, when he was things like that. He didn't feel bad about doing it. It didn't seem as if he felt like he was doing something out of place.
Yeah, because he's a non-conformist, isn't he, really?
He's very not what the norm would be, and that's where he works in it. The fact is, whatever you expect of Dave Lister, like even with the next episode with the Inquisitor, when he turns around and goes, I'm not standing here and justifying myself. He just
spin on it.
Basically, in effect, he said to authority, spin on it, because I don't care what you think. It's not what you think that matters to me. It's what I think. So he didn't even try and justify himself.
Yeah.
But I think Holoship is a start-up episode of season 5 was probably, out of the 6 episodes, I think it's the best one, because it's a romance, it's sci-fi, it's not overly silly, so any new person starting to watch that, same as like the Camille one, it's a stronger one for bringing the audience in, because you're not suddenly giving them sci-fi ones which are ridiculous and you're expecting people to go, what's all this about? It's one that actually introduces the characters again. So you've got, as you said, Lister gets his points with the movie at the beginning, the hollow scene. Cat gets his points constantly either putting down Rimmer or getting things wrong and being corrected. And then Crichton.
He's the one who figures it out, because he's kind of got the advantage of centuries over the others.
Yes.
Holly sadly doesn't, and that's the thing. A lot of stuff got cut out, and there was a scene she was supposed to have when Rimmer teleports back onto Red Dwarf, and like he said, look, my mind patch has failed. Like he first thing he does is he rushes to Holly and says, Holly, where's Crichton? And she's like, oh, hello, Holly, how are you today? And all this kind of thing, charming man kind of thing. Which in a way is kind of almost a meta acknowledgement of the fact that she is kind of getting a bit ignored this season, unfortunately. Yeah,
and it is because they brought in Crichton, and Crichton is the mobile data
store.
He's basically the mobile thesaurus. He can tell you what things mean.
Yeah.
So they're not constantly have to do anything like, for instance, have them talking to a watch and then having to do computer gadgetry to get it so the watch is there for Hattie, or when it was Norman, talking back. So they didn't need to worry about all that, or a TV has to be somewhere that they could do that. And I think even if you look at a lot of the scenes, Hilly's, or Holly, she's still classed as Holly in this one, but I still call her Hilly. She's still in the background, but in effect, she's just sitting there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's things that Crichton is saying you would expect that would be what Holly would say, because that's what they used to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah. I mean, I think even like on the DVDs, the extras, like Doug Naylor was saying, like he felt bad about that. He felt like, every time they wanted to give Holly a scene, it ended up being lost, in the edit, and they just felt, it's.
See, I think what they did a lot of the time is they gave both of them the things, but because they couldn't cut the Crichton exposition, whereas they could cut Holly's, because there was something always happening when Crichton was given the exposition. It's easier to cut the Holly one because usually it goes to the screen. So
it's true.
It's easier because usually they're in the middle of something, so the other characters are standing there beside Crichton. So it's harder to cut that part out and leave the Holly part in. And I think that's where the problem was, that if the two of them have exposition and they have to cut it down, it's harder to cut out Crichton because it's usually in the middle of something else.
Yeah.
But for a start-up episode, I thought it worked really well. So
yeah. Mm-hmm. So we moving on to the Inquisitor.
The Inquisitor. The great Jack Doherty's Inquisitor. But it's just,
you know what, I liked the fact that there was that kind of, that Crichton was saying, like, he told that whole folks tale about the Inquisitor, and it's like, well, we're never quite sure it's true, but it's like there's a mythology to the Inquisitor immediately, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And there's a kind of the idea that he's spent centuries alone, gone mad, and he's got this mad god complex.
Yes, and the fact that he's going around because he realizes there is no god because he's never met him.
Do you feel like it's almost like the Inquisitor could have had his own? There could have been an entire series, an entire sci-fi show about a character like the Inquisitor, and it's just that he's just mistakes. And it's almost like this just happens to be when he visits the Red Dwarf crew.
Yes.
So it's almost like he's a villain from another show coming into this one, but as though he's part of a bigger universe.
It's almost like a Quantum Leap type show where he pops in to correct mistakes.
Yeah.
But the fact is, there's aspects of this one which I found weird.
Okay.
Right. So he's going through time judging everyone. Right. So he finds someone, doesn't matter what age they are, it seems to be always in their 30s, 40s, based on the first guy they met.
Yeah.
Judges them, then wipes them from history and brings somebody new in at that point.
Yeah.
Then at that point, he should judge that person based on his life. And if that fails, then he should judge that person. So it basically comes back, sorry, sir, back to reality, in a way. He's going to have to come back because under his own rules, everybody gets it.
I think maybe his whole thing is just to give everyone a chance. So it's like his idea is, well, give every sperm that ever made it a chance, kind of thing. And it's like, and then I don't know.
No, it's just under his own rules, as everybody gets it to have to justify themselves if they made something, if they made a contribution or whatever, as if they, like, for instance, the cat and
Rimmer,
were judged worthy because based on what they were, they couldn't have done any better. But you look at the two Listers, they were almost identical. The fact that the cat's there means Lister still had his pet Frankenstein, who he refused to turn in, and that aspect of it. It's just almost a case of what difference based on the fact there's no difference. So let's say, for instance, they wiped him out, and it was and Lister hadn't died, and maybe Rimmer. So Rimmer was the live crew member, and Lister was the hologram. Slight change because a different person might have changed it, but in effect, it was almost like, well, Jake Abrams played almost exact. It'd be like a bounce back to Deb Lister.
You mean like
was an exact? She was a female version of Lister at that point. Yeah. Do you think like nothing changed?
I mean, like it was a missed opportunity, you feel?
Yes, there was a missed opportunity to show slight difference.
Yeah.
They could have still had the four crew, but maybe Rimmer and Lister were different. So Lister was the hologram and Rimmer wasn't, and that's what changed. So he'd been brought back to keep Rimmer sane because there was a slight difference. So maybe Rimmer was the one that actually somehow, because of their friendship, had hidden the cat and he was put in stasis. He took the blame for it because the slight changes between the two characters working together. He felt as if he didn't want to do it and it would have changed it. But it's the fact is they almost brought him back and it was almost them playing exactly the same characters.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed a wee bit weird because there seemed no difference. So if there was no difference and everything was exactly the same, what was the point? Was it just because Lister says, I'm no answering, so I'm no justifying it, so the next person's going to have the exact same life, exactly the same, so surely they're going to have to be judged then? It's just a weird one in that respect if you think about it. And unfortunately, I'm the type that actually thinks about silly things like that. Doesn't stop me enjoying it. It just makes me think,
Wait, you know what? Actually, I've just had a thought about the Thomas Elliman bit. Right now, it's not necessarily. But I mean, it could be that whoever you raised Thomas Elliman, and whoever whoever Thomas Elliman might have been, if like a different sperm had made it, maybe he ended up somewhere else ahead, somewhere. Maybe his life took a completely different path, and whoever was in the room was not actually the other Thomas Elliman. That was just who would have taken that room, and that maybe that's why he's saying sorry to disturb you, sir. Reality will travel. Maybe it was his way of saying, well, I don't know who this is. I mean, that's not made lucid. I'm probably making an excuse there. And it might be that if the Inquisitor had stuck around, he would have judged the new Lister and probably, but because the original Lister escaped, he became preoccupied with hunting him down. Now, back to what you said about the Inquisitor, like deciding who when he judges, when he doesn't. I mean, to me, I got a hint in this episode that he's not a fair judge, really, because with Crichton, the thing with Crichton, the scene where he's judging Crichton, I don't think it's because Crichton fails that he judges him. It's the fact that Crichton makes that pointed remark, it's not our place, we are droids, it's not our place. And I think that annoys him, and that's why he decides to be vindictive in his judgment, and not because of whether Crichton succeeded or failed. Because
to me, it was the same idea as Lister refusing to play his game. I think the two of them got the short end based on the fact as they refused to say, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Rimmer and the cats. The cat was, some people say, shallow. I am shallow. I mean, so he basically admitted he didn't even think he was being judged. It was just a case of, I'm who I am, end of story. Whereas Rimmer justified himself. What else could I have been?
I do laugh when when the cat says like, "Oh, can I?" He gives this case. I have a beautiful ass, and I go, "Can I go now?" It's like, "Well, that's your case." It's like, "What? You need more?"
Yeah. It's basically, it's almost. It's just, I don't know. It's the fact is the cat doesn't justify himself. He just basically says, "I'm who I am,"
Yeah.
and that's fine because he didn't say you're wrong for telling me him. Whereas Rimmer starts off, "Who are you? Who are you to demand?" Oh yeah, sorry, well, no problem. And then he goes, "What do you expect me? This is who I am."
I love the bit where he goes, the two bits with Rimmer's just trial. I love when he goes, well, first I think I goes, liar. And then he goes,
because
and then he points like behind and goes, "Oh, look, it's the Archangel Gabriel. I'm the reformed man."
When you think about it in Me Squared, you could just see the two of them arguing like that.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
It just brought back the Me Squared aspect of it. And I thought, very good, because it worked. And it did work for Rimmer justifying himself. The cat, no justifying himself, just accepting what it is. Because if they turn to the cat and says, "No, it doesn't justify it," I think, that's just it. That's me. He wouldn't have tried to explain things away. He would just say, "That's me, take it or leave it." And that's exactly what he did do. I mean,
that's the surprise, isn't it? Because you're thinking you would expect Rimmer to get the erasure because he's the failure, and Crichton you wouldn't. I mean, yes, but it's like it kind of. It was just our it was the sucker punch, wasn't it? In a way,
yeah. And I think it brings us back to the part that, as I was saying, where the two listers were all identical. That the first one, you couldn't tell the difference, right? The two people were slightly different. That was it. Yeah. The pictures were the same. So do you assume it's... But then again, who has a picture of themselves in their bedroom? Just themselves. Like, we've all got pictures. I've got pictures of myself all over my room, but it's usually me with different characters. Robert Llewellyn, Chloe Annette, that type of thing. I've got pictures of me, but I don't have pictures of me. Just me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So who would have a picture of himself? To me, that would have been better if it was a picture with, like, not a married, but maybe with the mother. And then something changes, so you see it's still the same guy. It's just a different incarnation of that person. But it was a picture of him changing to a picture of him. So if he was a narcissist, he's still a narcissist because he's still got the picture. But you don't know because they didn't explain anything. So that was fine. This is what he does. You don't know what the context of it is until he meets up with the Red Dwarf guys. Then with the Red Dwarf ones, you're sitting there thinking, the two listers are the same. What's changed? So is it nurture or nature? What difference does it make? Whereas to me, I thought they would have been slightly better if they tweaked it even slightly. Just with, as I said, changed who was the hologram, who was the living person. It would have been shown a wee slight difference.
Yeah. Oh, but Daniel's got a question.
Yeah, let's see. Is he going on about me watching the program again? Do you think the Orville is kind of Red Dwarf ripoff, as the Orville can be a bit jokey at times? No. You know the Orville is a love letter to Star Trek because Seth Rogen. Seth, is that get that right?
I think it's Seth MacFarlane, isn't it?
Seth MacFarlane. I get that, but he is a big Star Trek fan, and you know that Patrick Stewart thought Red Dwarf was a rip-off of Star Trek.
Yeah.
He says the first time he saw it, he was about to phone his lawyer.
He was, yeah.
Until he sat and watched it and realised it's just a fun comedy. It's just got wee bits like it. So Patrick Stewart doing The Next Generation thought Red Dwarf was a bit of a rip-off of Star Trek, and the Orville is a homage to Star Trek, but with a bit more joke. So I think the only thing they've got in common is Star Trek seems to be something in their past, but I don't think it's a rip-off. It's not like people think with Babylon 5 or Deep Space Nine, the two of them are separate shows. People think one's ripped the other off.
Yeah, if Red Dwarf's kind of a homage to anything, it's probably more something like Silent Running, isn't it?
Yes, aye, it is definitely. And the cat Lister, cat Rimmer, and Holly are Hugh, Dewey, and Lou. They are basically, the three of them are there to keep Lister sane. Yeah. And in Silent Running, you had Hugh, Dewey, and Lou for that purpose. And that's another great movie. I need to do that one day.
I saw it when I was a kid, and it was quite shocking as a kid because the main character is kind of a killer, but he's also I would like to see it again because I do have quite vivid memories of it, kind of thing. And
it's basically very, I thought hippie-ish at the time. Yeah, and the reason I thought hippie-ish is because why would they do all that just to keep the plants alive? Now I'm older, I understand the premise of it because these were the last and they were effectively just getting binned, and he thought we need to keep these species alive as best we can. But and yes, he became a killer to achieve those ends. But no, I think yes, you're right. It's more of a homage or a rip-off. But I don't like using the word rip-off because everything you look at any program, you always find aspects of other programs in it, and it's not necessarily they've ripped it off, but has it got a homage to Star Trek? Because you look at the type of characters.
To me, it's only a problem. To me, homage is a problem when it's either blatant or the opposite, where you're not going to get why they've done this unless you understand that it's a homage. Yeah, like for instance, I'm trying to think of a good example. That never mind. I'll just
You saying the Red Dwarf did a episode.
Clues. That's the
episode. Memory.
Yeah, and it's an episode where the Enterprise crew have 3 days of memory erased, and they
have to go back to try and find out, and then they realised they'd cocked up wee bits and pieces. Was that the one?
Data was the only one who knew what happened. Like he was refusing to tell anyone.
No, but initially they wiped Data's memory as well. It was only when they went back and they said, "See, this is not going to work." He says it's because we didn't do it properly. So if we do it properly, and then you just order me to forget about it, then it's going to work. And I think that worked a lot better. But was that Thanks for the Memory? I thought Thanks for the Memory one was
right. Was it what happened? That was series 2. It was where Rimmer gets drunk on his birthday, and he has that kind of tragic memory. He's telling Lister, "I only made love once in my entire life." And Lister feels sorry for him, and he decides to transplant 3 months memory. Or was it 6 months?
Yeah.
But however long he was with this old girlfriend called Lisa Yates, he was going to give Rimmer the memory of her. And then
he started treating her bad, and he was an orphan, even though his mum and dad lived in or wherever it was.
Yeah.
I remember them. Thanks for remembering, but I'm trying to think of the Next Generation episode. Because I remember there was one in Next Generation where Miles O'Brien gets memories implanted that he was in a prison.
That was in Deep Space Nine. That was Deep Space Nine.
Oh, that Deep Space Nine, not Next Generation. But it's because he was on both. I've obviously got mixed up. But that's the one I thought was a bit more like it because the memories were implanted into it. But but there you go.
Well, I mean,
I wouldn't say rip off, Daniel.
Yeah.
Homage, there is definitely homage to a lot of things.
The thing with the O'Brien thing, just quickly, is that it wasn't so. I think in this case, he knew that they were implanted memories, but they had an effect. They left a trauma because, it's almost like it's like to him he experienced it all, and it brought out.
No, that was the whole thing of it. He didn't know it was an implanted memory until after. Because it shows you him living through it. It's only when he came out and he realised it's only been 2 weeks and these were implanted memories, but they had effect because he lived through them in his mind.
Yeah.
But I remember that episode because it was a good episode. It's to me that was a better episode than there is 4 lights.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's basically, I thought Date's Best 9 was slightly better because it was more fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But then again, I like Voyager slightly better because that's even though I hate characters in that Voyager, I love Voyager. And I don't understand why I can hate a lot of the characters, dislike them immensely, think they're me, and still love it, go back and watch it again.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things. But Red Dwarf being a rip-off, I think the Orville plays homage, and I think Red Dwarf uses aspects of it. And I think that's not saying that it's taking things from Star Trek. I think it's just typical tropes of a space-based program, comedy or just because Orville and Red Dwarf are more comical, I don't think there's a lot from similar to the two of them, except that'd be like turning around and saying Red Dwarf is more to do with that 70s show than it has to do with Emergency.
Yeah.
Because one's a comedy and one isn't. It's horses for courses. Every space show is going to have tropes. Because as Crichton Data, you know what I mean? Is Holly the Margella Roddenberry's computer in Star Trek?
See
what I mean? It's just a case of there is going to be tropes in everything. You look at sci-fi program, there's going to be things that are similar.
I think if there's any kind of if they're meant to be kind of any characters to compare them to, it's probably more. You're probably looking more at Hitchhiker's Guide than Red Dwarf. Like you could say, Crichton is Marvin, and Cat is Zaphod, because Zaphod's really vain, isn't he? It's like, which is the most nonchalant chair to be caught operating on?
See, I prefer the original Zaphod rather than the remake. The remake one was rubbish. We constantly back and the head would pop there. Nah, I prefer the two heads.
I feel like
a better one.
I don't know. It felt like the film was missing the heart of it a bit.
I think it's the same idea. Somebody thought that's good, let's remake it without understanding what they're remaking.
Mm-hmm.
And we need a guy with two heads, but we don't want to have a prosthetic all the time. We'll use CGI, just have his head pop back. But really, it's because everybody knows Zaphod Beeblebrox because he got a head.
Yeah.
He basically got it surgically attached.
Yeah.
And I mean, it just seemed out of it. To me, they were watching Men in Black and decided that's a good way of doing it. We'll just have the two. So instead of hanging with a wee bit with the head popping up, they just had it at the neck so it could flip backwards and forwards. Whereas in Men in Black, you had the thing that came out the backpack and stuff like that. It's almost like somebody's seen that and thought, oh, that's the way to do it.
Am I thinking there's you have a Hitchhiker stream in the works sometime, maybe? Or you're thinking of one?
I am thinking of one, and it's definitely going to be the classic Hitchhikers, not the new one. I have got the DVD, I have got the book, or I've got the radio program.
Yeah.
I love Sandra Dickinson as Trillian. But yes, I do love Red. I think maybe after I've done Blake 7, I might actually do it. Sounds good.
Save a seat for me.
Red Dwarf, because I want to keep my Wednesday one for TV, and I want to transition my Sunday one to basically movies. But because I'm watching Red Dwarf and Blake 7, I'm using the Sunday one sort of to segue a movie and a TV show in. But I eventually want to Sunday's just going to be all the classic movies, and a Wednesday's going to be TV programs. So maybe after this one, after Red Dwarf is finished, I might go and do the Hitchhikers.
Save a seat for me if you're doing the radio series, definitely, because I've read the first two, and I've seen the TV series. The books, I've only read the first two. I've not read the later volumes.
I've only got the first one on Audible.
Fair enough.
And I know I've got a load of books, and you can see there's a load of books back here, but because my sites are starting to go, and I do a lot of driving. I use Audible, and it's basically I have got a couple of the books, but I can't constantly changing my glasses because I've got my reading glasses, my driving glasses. So I just listen to audibles.
I've got a version of the first Hitchhiker book, which is it's the book, but it's a graphic design version. So it's like all the passages, but it's also got these illustrations. Like it's got these photographic illustrations. It cost me about 25 quid. It's like, but I had to get it just because it looked so beautiful. Like,
yeah, it's. I see the thing is that's why even though I know I must admit I don't read as much as I used to. I used to read quite regularly. Like I've got a couple of my Wheel of Time books down there, and the paperback ones are dog-eared because every time a new book comes out, I would start at the beginning and read a new book. So every couple of years a new book would come out, I would reread it so the first 5 are paperback and they're dog-eared. After that, I started getting hardback, and they're not as bad. However, I stopped doing that because I'm not as good at reading. But I still do collect the occasional books because, especially if they've got good artwork in them.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I still got all my comics down there. I've got a load of comics that I'm actually going through, and I've got a couple coming, but I've even got some I got from Comic Cons a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
It's just called Tomorrow, and it's just about a real woman who basically she wakes up and finds everybody's disappeared, and she finds an alien. And it's basically that's the whole premise of it.
Yeah.
If you hear the premise of the story, you're sitting there thinking, really? But it actually looked quite good. The artwork was quite good, and I thought, I'm picking that up. I just had a wee flick through it when it was on the stall, and I picked it up. I've still got that to read. I've got Judge Dredd to read. I've got 2008 to read. Comics, I'm going back to my childhood. I'm starting to reread what are my comics.
You're like Lister, like when he's like reading he doesn't bother with the history version of the Trojan Wars. It's like it's the comic book version, and I love when he's saying I think because people that stupid deserve to be zapped powder.
It shouldn't be beware the
beware Greeks.
It should beware the Trojans because they're yes, it just so happened to be big enough to hold 500 fully armed men and toilet facilities.
There's a stage show where Eddie Izzard did that same gag, and and he was saying why would they just leave them this big horse? We should have left them some dog poop. That's what we think of you.
But I mean, people don't even know if the Troy is real, right? They've found aspects of a city that they think is Troy, so it's starting to make it look like it's not the Iliad, it's because it's Homer's Iliad, and that leads up to Troy. It's what did they call it in the episode?
I think it was the Iliad of Troy, wasn't it?
It could have been. But I know Homer did the Iliad, which didn't actually cover the Trojan Wars and the Helen and stuff like that. But the fact is, they're starting to believe that did happen, and then they're saying if that did happen, well, they might have left something, and in effect, it might have had 5 or 6 guys just sitting there and in there with nothing but a loincloth and a sword.
Right.
It was just so they could get in to open the gates because they all sailed away. They came back, but they all had until the gates were opened, and it was the opening the gates what they wanted. So they reckon that yes, they might have been something like that, but yes, they're fully armed men because there's parts in it where they say when they were bringing it in that it was too tall, so it kept hitting the stonework at the top. And they says, well, if there was fully armored men in that, they would have heard. They would have heard all the armor clashing together. So if that was the case, then they wouldn't have had to, because they had to take part of the doorway down to allow the wooden horse to be brought in. So it's going to take a couple of days. So is there going to be a lot of men there? No, it's probably just enough to get in and just give each other back up to get the gates opened. And once the gates are opened, they all rush forward.
Yeah.
That's where they reckon that came from. But that doesn't make it any less hilarious that he's reading the comic book version.
Yeah.
And I'm not just saying because I've read all these stuff and YouTube's great for watching all these documentary programs.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you know, I mean, a lot of my books are history books and stuff like that. Usually military history books. It's Second World War, Napoleonic War, First World War. I've got a lot of books like that. So I do like war history and things like the Trojan Wars and stuff like that. That's why I have a wee bit of knowledge of it, is because I do enjoy reading stuff like that. Yeah. But I must admit, if there was a comic version, I probably would have read that as well.
Yeah.
But I noticed that one Wendy says about Craig. I saw that when he was doing Robot Wars. Basically, there was a robot called Inquisitor, and he says, "Where was that from?" And the guy said, "From Red Dwarf," and Craig Charles says, "Never heard of it." I remember that episode. I must admit, I did watch Robot Wars.
All right.
I know Daniel watched Robot Wars and really liked it. But if he didn't watch Red Dwarf, it doesn't count. He can shout at me later on. But I thought the Inquisitor was good for the fun aspects of it. There was enough jokes in that to make it a really good episode. I don't think it was strong enough as a first episode.
No.
I think it was just perfect as a later episode, because I don't think there's any episode. Well, there was one I think was probably strong enough to go in the front, but it would have been crazy to put it in the front.
I know which one you mean, but yeah, anyway.
Just because of the premise of it.
Yeah.
But I think Hollow Ship was a great one to put in front, and I think there's none of the other ones that could have actually fitted that point. And I think Inquisitor, it was either Inquisitor or Terraform they were thinking about putting in the first one, and I don't think any of the two of them would have worked. But Inquisitor was funny. I can't deny it. And Jack Doherty was good as the Inquisitor.
Yeah.
Do you know they actually didn't intend to actually have the Inquisitor to be any of the other ones? They were originally just going to actually have the Inquisitor with a mask down, so it would have been Jack Doherty just doing it, the questioning. So they weren't going to have the rest of them, and they thought it looks a bit weird because he's meant to be them, so let's show it's them. Hence the reason why it flips up.
Well, I know that there is a deleted scene, isn't there some deleted footage where he at the end he's supposed to take his mask off and we see the real Inquisitor. But when Lister finally defeats him and he tricks him, that's we actually see the real him.
Yeah. I think so. I think there is. Yes, you're right. But at the point where he's doing the interviews, accordingly, he was meant to he was either going to take his helmet off at that point, or he was going to keep the helmet on. But because they decided that he was meant to represent them themselves, they thought maybe get them to actually do the part themselves rather than actually have Jack Doherty playing the part, and then they're just actually he's meant to be them. It would have been fun with them being them. It's almost like the Camille again, going back to Camille, who did desire more. The cat is just the cat.
Yeah.
Sees himself. And it's how they perceive it.
A
perception filter.
Yeah.
And that's what I looked at it as he lifted the helmet up. It was a perception filter. Yeah, I mean, that's the way I looked at the Inquisitor's helmet.
Yeah.
Because he couldn't become everybody. He basically could only read their minds, because he said he scanned their minds, and then he basically used a perception filter to project back themselves to them. Because if it was themselves, then Lister wouldn't have interrogated himself, because he would have had the same thoughts. So it still is the Inquisitor, just projecting what they see or hear.
Yeah, I mean, I was wondering if maybe it might be some kind of generated organic mask or genetically engineered, re-engineering himself to look like them or something.
Well, he can actually grow his hand back when it gets cut off. You see it
Oh
growing
yeah,
back.
yeah, I remember now.
Work.
Yeah.
But I just thought because of that, it's maybe when they lifted the helmet up, it's just a perception. But it's still the Inquisitor because Lister wouldn't have basically questioned himself.
Yeah. The other thing about the Inquisitors, I think this is where they're really moving the show more into the realms of black comedy. It's not just comedy anymore. It's black comedy. It's like this dangerous, dark situation. You get a lot more really grim gallows humor, and
Hudson.
Yeah, well, that's kind of, but this is more like where people meet really grisly fate, and there's a joke about it. Like when Lister gets his other self's hand and uses that, and Crichton's like, logically, sir, there's only one way.
There.
What?
The hand.
Oh, it should have been a raise, shouldn't it?
It should have been a Crichton glove hand, but it wasn't. It was a hand.
Oh no, that was actually supposed to be Lister's other self.
I thought it was actually no, but I thought he'd picked up Crichton's because it was Crichton. It was he'd picked it up from. No,
but both of the cells were killed. I don't think you see Lister. Now when you see it, I don't think you actually see Lister die. You see Crichton get blown up, but I think it's implied that they both died in that, and that's
maybe
where
it's because of the way that the cat died. He got hit with a beam and he just disintegrated. So I just assumed maybe that's what it was, and I just assumed he'd picked up Crichton's hand because he was doing.
It was Lister's hand. It was the other Lister's hand. I'm pretty sure it must have been.
It must have been because it definitely wasn't a robot hand.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But then again, I know fine well I could have actually just assumed something and I've made an ass.
Give you 5. Better than that. Give you 15.
Do you know it was based on the Terminator, the Inquisitor?
I thought maybe it was more kind of Judge Dredd inspired or something, or at least
it was a bit of both but it's based on the Terminator where he's going back in time and changing things, replacing, and that's so. I think they did use. I'm trying to think of the Judge Dredd story they used for that. There's a load of 2000 AD stories that had time travel involved in it, but I'm trying to think of the Judge Dredd one that they had Johnny Alpha going back in time and working with Judge Dredd.
But what strikes me about the story is you don't really see, other than the fact that he's lived for centuries, you don't really get much hint of. Well, the fact that he's a droid isn't emphasized that much. The fact that he's a simulant isn't emphasized that much.
Exactly, and the fact is, you see the hand regrowing quite naturally. Yeah. It just seemed. I think it would have been better if it had slowed. It actually given an exoskeleton, metallic skeleton, and then the skin appearing on it, where it just sort of grew back. I thought. But accordingly, it was based on the Terminator. It could have been Judge Dredd as well, but I'm trying to think of a Judge Dredd story that he's going back in time to actually alter the history.
Was there a character called what about Judge? Wasn't there supposed to be this character called Judge Death? Who was?
The Judge Death came from an alternate reality.
All right, okay.
Basically, came over from basically where they had deemed that crime was committed by all the living, so life was the crime. And the sentence was death. So they basically killed everybody in their dimension. And they got brought over by Anderson. Mm-hmm. And then that's when you had Mortisphere and Famine come over and Dark Judges. But that was from an alternate dimension.
Right.
Although Judge Dredd didn't kill everybody he actually met. There you go. Yeah. There was one real woman, but even Judge Death thought was innocent. I'll need to remember her name. I've actually got the book somewhere. There's one where they did Judge Dredd hiding as a lodger, hiding from Judge and trying to be thingmate, and the wee woman who's is the owner of the house. The judges say after they get rid of Judge Dredd, what we do with her? He said, Judge Dredd says, even Judge Death found her innocent.
Yeah.
So if he finds her innocent, then she must be innocent. So
Yeah.
But I know there was the Dark Judges one, but that was an alternate dimension. That's more your parallel universes rather than a time travel one. But I think it's got a lot of Terminator vibes to it, just for the simple fact is he travels back through time to change history, whereas the Inquisitor's traveling back through time to alter person's history, or remove that person from history to change it. So I suppose that's more of is it a homage again? It's not a rip-off, it's just they used a similar premise, but they changed it enough that it's different enough.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah.
I mean, they've already kind of done Alien with Polymorph, haven't they?
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
And they've tried Predator a few times with simulants. Because they're always hunting for them and stuff like that. Not Alien, but they're never going to be an alien in it.
No, that's
technically there is, but they're never going to be aliens in it, because technically the cat race is alien because they're not human. They're from Earth initially, but they're technically an alien race.
Yeah, but I mean that's where they're indigenous, isn't it? So it's,
they're indigenous to anything, but in comparison, there's basically how would you define an alien race? So is it every race that's on Earth is not an alien race because it's categorized, or is it something from another planet? Because although the initial cat came from Prime, didn't even come from Earth, but the species came from Earth, but it was Triton. Then actually the actual whole species came from Red Dwarf.
I just started. In Sliders, there's this. There's this part. There's it somewhere in the later seasons. They actually do come across a race of what might have become
the Cro-Mags.
Yeah, what might have become humanity, but the villains of the piece. And I thought,
the Cro-Mags.
And I thought with Red Dwarf, that's one way out of the no aliens rule. They could have done something where an alternative version of humanity came from another parallel universe and goes in the attack. Because I mean, they're kind of limited to simulants and gelfs, aren't they?
Yes,
they're either robots or they're genetically engineered villains.
But as you can imagine, I've watched Sliders. I do love Sliders. The early ones of Sliders were better, but until his brother took over. But Doyle's was it Jonathan? Jerry Doyle, and he had his brother. The two of them played together in one of the, what was the movie? It was it an American Pie movie? The two of them played in it. But you had, was it the guy played the main character in Sliders? Was it Jerry Doyle?
Yeah.
And then his brother took over near the end when he wanted to leave. It's actually his brother who played the alternate him.
Yeah.
So, but I did like the first couple of seasons better, but I still watched all of them. I do like it. And yes, the Cro-Mags were sort of brought in to be the big bad. They were, but I think by that time, I think they should have stuck to a more episodic rather than actually try to make a full glimpse one. But I must admit, my favourite character at the beginning was Rembrandt.
Oh yeah, the crying man.
Yes, he was just superb. So very cool, cat-like.
Yeah.
There's Daniel just saying shots fired because I was slagging him for not watching Red Dwarf.
So, should we do Terraform then?
Yes, Terraformed. Terraform.
Now,
so much fun.
To get back to what you said, we were discussing about aliens before. I mean, like, this is a psi moon, so it's almost like, does that mean there's some kind of organic telepathic intelligence at the core of the planet or something?
Simon, I think it is. It's basically because he gave the description. It's a Simon, so basically it used the psyche. So is it just energy? It just manifests.
Yeah, I mean,
or is it the life forms basically? But I don't know. The way they describe it, it just sounds like it's an energy. It's a psi energy that manifests.
I mean, it's a bit like Legion. It's like it's almost like the planet is dormant until anyone arrives, and then suddenly it takes form, and it takes form based on their personalities.
Yeah. Even charm.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. my favorite bit in that is when they first land, and they land ashore, and Rimmer's like, "Is it me or those frogs saying useless?" And you actually listen to them. They go,
I know you don't notice it. You hear that, and you don't really notice it until they actually mention it. See, once he mentions it, even when they're talking over it, you can hear the words quite distinctly. I thought that was really good because you just hear the frogs in the background. You don't even notice it. It's only when he says, "Are those frogs saying useless?" And then once you hear it, even in rewatches, you can hear what the frogs are saying from as soon as somebody's pointed it out. It just basically, yes. Yeah. But I must admit, this is the one that I was saying that they used a failed Doctor Who prop monster in it.
Oh, yeah.
And as far as I understand, it's an old, and I think it's the bit. Initially, I thought it was the legs, but it can't be because that's nothing, legs and the tail. But I think it's the bit where it comes out of the pit and it's just the head sort of coming through the cloud, the smoke. Yeah, it's an old Doctor Who monster that never was, but it was made as a prop and never used, and never thought, that's lying there and it's never been used. We could use that. And I think it worked because it was shrouded enough in fog and darkness that it looked menacing.
Yeah.
And I'm glad they didn't show it. And I don't think they could have, basically. Nowadays they could with CGI. And I'm glad CGI wasn't out there to actually... It's the same as a lot. Suspensions and not really seeing it.
At that point in 1992, you'd seen some CGI in Terminator 2 and obviously in Tron.
Yeah.
And I think maybe some in Jurassic Park as well.
Well, Jurassic Park was the big one with CGI, was basically the dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Because that was the benchmark. That was the best that had ever been seen at that point.
Yeah.
The Jurassic Park one, because that's the one where they actually, wow, look what they could do with CGI now.
Mm-hmm.
But there was always CGI. You look at some of the old Doctor Who, the dinosaur one, that was dire.
You mean like the classic, like the Pertwee story?
I see. I only talk classic. Sorry.
Fair enough.
I'm a classic boy. I don't really watch the new stuff. I've watched it, but I've never watched it twice. So, and I stopped watching it before the end of Capaldi. So, and even that, I basically watched it when I could be, when I had nothing else to do, because I never watched it when it was first broadcast because I stopped watching it. But no, it's the classic one. You look at the Pertwee one with the dinosaurs. That was done in two different formats of film that didn't quite mesh. But in effect, that was CGI. Very, very, very early CGI, because it was, it was definitely, they tried to do it in a computer, but in effect, however they did it, it wasn't stop motion. And if it was done so badly in a different film format that it didn't quite work. But you look at things like Babylon 5. A lot of people still say, oh, that's quite clunky and stuff like that. Some parts of it are, whereas I think some parts of Babylon 5 they still hold up well today for CGI. But when it comes to groundbreaking CGI, Jurassic Park was it. Because that was the first time you saw something and thought, wow, that looks real.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine them doing something like that in Red Dwarf. Not got the budget.
No.
Not got the budget to do something like that. But I think it works better because there was enough of a hiding of it, make it be menacing, because you don't need to have something out there to be menacing or scary.
Yeah.
And having despair and all that is just the black cloak. See, to me, there you go. Is this another one? Is that a homage to the Star Wars?
It is, but it's also, it kind of fits because it's like, But it's it. Nah, you know what? I think it's a win. I think the Star Wars thing is a slight reference to Wizard of Oz, and I think this is as well because it's almost kind of suggesting that this is almost Rimmer's Oz, and it's almost like the just flying monkeys of the self-loathing beast.
Yes. But I think when I saw them, because they had the capes on, the hoods, the glowing red eyes, I thought Star Wars.
Yeah.
But it is. I think it is. That's probably what is the Wizard of Oz is probably a very good analogy for that one, because it's a dark Wizard of Oz. Wizard of Oz is Dorothy's dream, or was it a dream? But Dorothy's dream, whereas this is Rimmer's nightmare.
Yeah,
but it's the same idea. You have got
he
is the Wicked Witch.
Well, it's like you got these kind of like the Swamp of Despair. It's like these are kind of, they feel very Oz, don't they?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because the Swamp of Despair was like going across the field of flowers that just knocked him all to sleep. But I must admit, I liked his not hope, but charm was to be Tina Headstone, and then had honor and self-worth.
Well, it's
resurrected. You know, Chris Barry actually took some fencing lessons for that.
Oh, did he?
So look out of it. And it's the same again. He went to the gym because he knew he was going to get soaked up, or oiled up. He didn't want to actually look flabby. So he basically, that's happening to me. I'm getting in shape because I'm not going to have these two gorgeous women actually oiling up a wee podgy. He basically does himself up.
I mean, the Graves scene is, it's funny, but it's kind of sad and poignant as well, because it's like it's saying these are like, as you go through life, sometimes you lose certain aspects of yourself that you used to have. You know, and this is said like that something like it's sad. Like there's a story in there. It's like what happened at age 12 to Rimmer that caused him to lose this and that aspect.
Well, that was another way. It was also the descriptions of them. It was taken out. His optimism was taken away.
Yeah.
So something happened to take it away, but other ones were where it sort of died because something happened, and it just generosity. Somebody's done something, and his generosity died, whereas his optimism was taken away. His self-worth was removed, not forgotten. It's that type of thing. Something's happened that just either killed it or literally took it from him, because up until that point he still had some of it, but somebody's done something that took it off him. And it is, I think it is actually quite poignant. It's another Rimmer-centric one.
Yeah.
And it is actually quite poignant because you see all his neurosis.
Yeah. But
even the part where he's actually getting oiled up, he thinks something fun's gone.
I mean, I think SFW did suggest maybe they should have put this first, so the hollow ship would kind of be the redemption. Like, and they felt like maybe this should have been the Rimmer's Lois, and hollow ship should have been, that would have worked as a redemption after, kind of thing.
See, I think this would have probably not worked as well.
Oh.
Because by this point, you've seen Rimmer at his best.
Yeah.
And at this point, they're showing you not necessarily at his worst, but why he is when he is at his worst.
Yeah.
And I think if they'd put that in at the beginning, especially for people who hadn't really watched it up until that point, it might have been a case of too dark.
Yeah.
Do you want to actually like this character? Whereas in Hollow Ship, you learn that although he's Weasley, there's things that he wants and these things that he's willing to give up.
Yeah.
And I think if they'd put this one first, I don't think it's as strong as a Rimmer episode. I think it's more a case of you realise how bad he can be and why he's so bad, rather than this is how bad he is, but really if he needs to be, he can be good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I think that's the way I was looking at it, is that's why they had the whole ship rather than, because I think it was either Inquisitor or Terraform was going to be one of the first two. And I think they decided whole ship because it starts on a nice note and it shows Rimmer at his best. And then later on, when you see him at his worst, then it's funny because you've seen that even though he's this bad, he is better now. Even though he's still got all this inside him. But I suppose it's different ways of looking at it, isn't it? Because if you like the dark humour side of it, then that would have been a better one. Whereas they're looking at it for a more general audience to get people to watch it. So if you like the type of humour, even if it's dark humour or light humour, then Hollow Ship's a better one because it brings more people in. Whereas if you put Terraform, it'll bring people in, maybe not as many, because some people who want just generic humour or lighter humour might get put off with it. But then again, there is always weird people out there that don't find dark humour funny.
Yeah.
Not that I'm calling anybody out there daft for not watching the same stuff that I like, but that's just me. But I think Terraform was a good midpoint.
Yeah.
Especially leading up to one of the funniest in the whole show. Quarantine.
Yeah.
That's why I'm wearing my psycho word. Quarantine.
We could still talk about Terraform a bit.
Definitely. There's more of Terraform than just the wee bits we've discussed. But yeah, what was your thoughts about the let's show Rimmer how much we love him?
Now, well, the thing is, I did think, because there's that hesitation when they say, well, when Kat says, well, how do we, how do we make him feel like? What is them about him to feel good about, kind of thing? And I did think, well, this is a life or death situation. Wouldn't it have come to mind maybe, certain memories of, how, they could have based it on something genuine. They could have found genuine reasons to like him, or genuine reasons to praise him, maybe. Like, I mean, or Lister could have said, "Well, you help me." Like, I mean, when it started with Lister saying, "Well, look, we've decided we're going to face it together," and the other thing is I think, like, going back to the costume, the monster, like they did kind of, I think they scaled back on its appearance, didn't they? Like, I think they said, well, look, the prop doesn't look that good, so we might downplay it and just kind of have it kind of barely on screen. But I think in a way that hurts it a bit, because the scene where they actually burst in and start firing at it, like it's supposed to imply that the thing is indestructible. And I think because we don't see I don't think it hit home enough how indestructible it was. And so that basically when, Crichton says you're part of the crew and that vanquishes it, like that should have hit home as, wait a minute, how come the bullet? Yeah. And I think,
I think because they were hiding because it wasn't a great prop, I think the one line sort of summed it up. Is it my turn now?
Yeah.
That sort of, I can't have imagined any other line that would have actually said to you, "Oh dear." You know what I mean? Could you imagine if it turns around and says, "That was barely a scratch"?
Yeah.
I mean, anything like that. Whereas just asking the simple question, "Is it my turn now?" You think, "Oh dear." And I think something, it's basically where it's no turning around and saying that barely scratched. You know what I mean? That did the hurt. It doesn't have the same impact. And because they couldn't show how tough it was, they could explain it just by a simple quip, which works better than some of the bigger speeches you see in other TV programs. you can fire all you want, but those bullets will not damage me. They will just do it. And that it would have been a bit monologue-y, and it would have been, really? You're telling me how tough you are. Don't need to. You just ask a simple question. And it basically goes, oh dear, pucker time. But yes, and when he turns around and says, of course, you're part of the crew. And he goes, ah! You're sitting there thinking, why did it take them so long to run up the flagpole and give it a salute, as it were?
Yeah. But I mean, watching it now, it did seem like at first, wouldn't Rimmer be more weirded out by this than praised, if you know what I mean?
Yes. What are you doing? Are you going to actually grab me and throw me out? To me, that's what I would have thought, because if people actually suddenly being nice to me after I've said I ain't going out there, and they're suddenly being nice and want to come up and grab me, I'd be sitting there thinking, they're going to jump me and throw me out. This is just to put me into they're lulling me to my ease to make it easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, especially considering he had a body to deal with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what I mean? To me, that's what I would have done. I would have thought they're basically going to jump me. And considering Rimmer is always skeptical about anything like that, why did he automatically assume they were being nice?
Yeah, I mean, well, Lister was trying to say, well, look, guys get insecure. We don't say what we mean. We don't really say, when girls are together, they can be really affectionate and praising, whereas guys kind of a bit more, it's a bit more banter, a bit more flippant, but
that's always the case. And I mean, I've worked with guys for years, and it is a case of how you doing, your diddy, and stuff like that. It's stupid. But you wouldn't say it to somebody you didn't really know.
Yeah.
But it's only people you know quite well, and you basically got a good repartee with. You could slag each other without thinking, oh, yeah, I mean, I think that aspect of it worked well, because yes, a lot of guys do that, take the mickey out of each other, and it's all taken in fun because you know the person.
Yeah.
But I still think Rimmer would have just sort of went, what are they up to?
Yeah. I mean, to a degree, like the point is made that they could have just turned Rimmer over. They could have said, well, look, because the self-loathing beast says, just to get at Rimmer, it's like, my quarrel's more with you than anyone else, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And they could have said, well, but they stuck together, and but
yeah, it basically showed that even though they go through the quick get out of here before they give them back, stuff like that, Cat constantly says, they still do stick together as a crew.
Yeah. And I think in a way the fact that he's given a physical presence means there's no way out for him. It's like they couldn't just like send him an escape pod to because like they do the ore sample thing where they in quarantine they convert him to a small light beam and they send him in one of those ore sample pods, but they can't do that here because he's physical, he's human again, just from temporarily. Yeah,
until he actually leaves the planet. So
I would have liked them to make. I would have like there is a line where Crichton says if we don't get Rimmer out, we're going to be trapped here. And I thought I would have liked them to kind of make that a bit more lucid about why.
Yes. Because if they can't get Rimmer out, then the Spear Beast is basically turning around and saying, give me him so you can get out. So it's only because he's in the ship.
Well, no, it's more Crichton seems to imply that if the self-loathing beast wins, then basically they're trapped in the Simoon, like there's no way out or something. If the beast gains full dominion, then basically there's no way out of the planet or something.
Yeah. Which did they not do something similar? Well, I'm trying to think what it was. Was there not another story later on? It's very similar to that. They used the I'm trying to remember what it was.
Rimmerworld or no?
It was something they basically had to escape from the planet, and the planet was holding them back, and they had to give it a bit extra, or there was something to do.
And you know what? I think maybe you're thinking of the Red Dwarf book, Better Than Life, because that's where they land on Okay, I'm not going to give a spoiler, but basically, Lister gets marooned on a planet that was treated like a garbage dump by humanity. And it's implied that the planet is sentient and it wants to punish him for all the things his species did to the planet. It's in Better Than Life, and basically he has to make amends.
It, but I think there was another episode. See, the thing is, they also did that in Voyager. The one about remember the metal, the crew became sentient.
Oh yeah.
There was a similar one with that. It basically started sinking, and they had to actually try and get out. But I'm sure there was one. It was very similar. It was they had to. I don't know if they had to give up something to take off. But then again, find it when we come to it. It's one of those ones. It's sitting in there. It's percolating, and I will remember it. And it's all typical. I'll remember it right at an opportune time. Something else I'll be talking about, and it'll pop in. And then I'll have to get a whole backdrop to why I thought of that.
Here's a question for you. Would you have liked them to do the same premise again, only using Lister's mind or Cat's mind or Crichton's mind or something?
I would love to have seen Cat's
mind. Yeah.
Oh, do you know? Did you see the Cat's outfit?
Oh yeah, the yellow,
the black and yellow.
Yeah.
You know what that was, don't you? Remember the black and white one from Camille?
Yeah.
That's the same jacket. Do you know how they coloured it?
Trying to think. You'll have to tell me.
Highlighter pens.
Oh, right. Okay.
They used highlighter pens to give it the yellow colour.
All right. Okay.
So basically, you imagine somebody sitting there going, colouring it in. Yeah. You would think it would be easier just to dye it, even though it wouldn't have looked great or have looked okay in screen. But no, they had somebody colouring it in with highlighter pen so it looked completely different. And all it did was change its colour. Right. Nowadays, you can imagine they would change it using CGI and stuff like that. But somebody's physically had to sit there and colour all that white in with highlighter pens.
Yeah.
You imagine? Yeah. What did you do in work today, dear? I coloured in a jacket. But you know what I mean, a dresser, and basically his job is to use a highlighter pen to change a colour.
Yeah,
but it was the same outfit from Camille, and it was basically coloured in.
Yeah, I have to say, if there's one thing I wish they kind of one trick I would have liked them to make is like when at the beginning when Rimmer's abducted, I would have liked it to be slightly less flippant. I would have liked it to be a bit more sense that he's kind of he's nervous, he's under threat. I think maybe they kind of yeah. But I mean, there's a lot of threat this season, so maybe they went for they decided, well, we'll make we'll make this one a bit lighter, maybe.
Yeah, but then again, because of who was flippant about it.
Yeah,
Cat, and he's always flippant about every time something happens to him. Or quick, let's get out here before they bring him back, or like at the like later on, I'll talk about that. It's always Cat. It always seems to be making the jokes about him, they're losing him, or how unlucky they are to get him back, and making the jokes about get out here before they give him back. Or like even last season, it was a case of on the minus side, we've lost Rimmer. On the plus side, we've lost Rimmer.
Yeah,
it's the. I mean, so it's always the Cat. It seems to be glad he's gone, but that's the narcissistic Cat.
Yeah.
Whereas Lister never seems to be the one making those type of jokes. He's always quite happy to actually avoid him, go fishing or without him and stuff like that. But he doesn't seem to joke about losing him and hoping he doesn't get him back. whereas the cat does.
So
it's always the cat is the problem.
So the next one's Quarantine.
One, of all the 5 seasons, this Quarantine is probably one of the most iconic ones.
Yeah.
It is for me, and it's everybody knows about it. Every Red Dwarf fan knows what one you're talking about when you mention certain things. Other ones you mention something, they'll say, "Oh, I remember that one, but was that what one was that in?" Whereas you mention Gingham Dress, people know Quarantine, Mr. Flibble, Quarantine. So there's aspects like that. Whereas if you mention things like Deb Lister, people say, "Right, but that was one of the ones where they already is it," and they wouldn't actually automatically come up and say Parallel Universe. No. It's they know about it, but the what episode it was in. There's certain things that are just iconic in Quarantine. Well, you look at Mr. Flibble, for instance, right? Only ever appears once. Yet they made toys, Red Dwarf toys out of it. A character appears once in. At the time, it was 9-10 seasons, and they were making toys because it was still a popular toy. And that appeared once in 10 seasons. It's now 13 seasons and it still sells, but considering a one-off character, it's so iconic.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, I do feel like I would have liked there to have been more of that kind of thing, more of like Rimmer gone crazy, and that's I think maybe where I feel like like Hollow Ship, I would have liked this to maybe be like maybe a 45-minute episode because I feel like because I feel like absolutely. I mean, I think the chase with Rimmer that could have gone on quite a little bit longer. I felt like they could have kept that going a bit more.
Yeah, and I think if the set in the stage, they could have shortened. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of exposition when they were actually on the ship.
Yeah,
talking about Landstrom and stuff like that. They could have cut out maybe 5 minutes of that and added it in to give a bit more of how crazy he was becoming and made it a bit longer because they jumped to we're going to be fine and black eyes, broken noses and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They could have actually given a bit more about how his actions led up to the fights. Well, rather than, it's been 5 days and look at us.
Well, I think Lister implies, like, he says, like, because he says, I'm not going to help you out this time. I think maybe it's because Crichton, I think maybe the fight happened because Crichton put the video on or something. the wallpaper video, and they were telling him not to, and eventually the fight happened or something.
Yeah.
Or maybe one of them wanted to watch at the end of the one of them just wanted him to turn it off, and so the fight happened. But it just... Or it could have been about anything. I mean, that's the thing. It's like usually those three are kind of united against Rimmer.
Yeah.
And Rimmer does something quite devious here and he gets them to fight each other. And I think that's kind of why... And it's hard to watch because you're used to this being a good dynamic, a kind of a warm dynamic. And it's like, but Rimmer's, to him, this is like, they hate each other almost as much as they hate me kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's basically he uses... the rules that they constantly go at. Yeah. So basically, they use the...
Well, I mean, because at the beginning, he does hint, are you being vindictive and using them against me all the time? Because why does Lister never get a quote against? And he does say, like, what's happened to Crichton? He's become influenced by them to become quite a nasty piece of work. And
yes. Yeah. And yes, how many times do you actually hear him saying to Lister or the cat about regulations? He never does. It's always at Rimmer.
Yeah.
And is he just doing that because he knows Rimmer bothers about them?
Yeah.
Whereas the other two, doesn't matter if he quotes them to them, they would just go, don't care.
Yeah.
Whereas Rimmer does care.
Mm-hmm.
And it started the standing joke of Rimmer constantly quoting the rules, and it's always wrong.
Yeah.
And it's based on this episode because that's when they first read the rules.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because at first you do sympathize with Rimmer a bit because they are just they're quite beastly to him at the beginning.
Yeah. Even the cat, it's the same again. It's the cat. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Sky drone away, sir. As you say, sir, and all that. So it's the cat getting at him again. Whereas Lister's sitting back and just ignoring him, or just basically saying, yeah, right, fine, no problem, we don't care.
Yeah.
Whereas it's the cat, it's actually digging it in.
Yeah.
So I always find it's the cat that has more of a problem with Rimmer than Lister does.
Yeah. I mean, the part that really hits home is when Lister echoes what Rimmer said about, Rimmer was right, you have changed. It's like they are becoming kind of a bad team again.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, Rimmer's he's ruined the dynamic. And that's that's the first time that he has kind of thing.
Yes, because he's always the one that keeps the theorem together constantly at him, whereas he takes himself out the picture and leaves them with nothing else except each other's company.
I love when Rimmer's reading out okay, I provide you with entertainment. Like there's a book though, there's a crossword puzzle with all the puzzles completed, and for dinner you have sprout soup, sprout dessert, and thing quite unusual, sprout crumble. If there's one,
you know what Sprouts does for me? Oh dear, it's going to be Sprouts almost every day. Oh no, I tell a lie. It is every meal.
Yeah.
And he's getting his own back because they've been right up until that point. Crichton has been quoting the rules, and he followed the rules letter by letter. And it basically, he did nothing wrong. He was a bit overboard with the choices, but in effect, it says you need a video, puzzles, reading material. He supplied them. Do you know what I mean? So you can't complain because technically, as the book said, there is a video, there is puzzles, there is a book to read or a pamphlet to read, even if there's a chessboard with 31 pieces missing. So in effect, a piece. You couldn't even, not with two pieces that you could have a game against with that one piece each.
Yeah.
With one piece. So even if you had an imagination, you couldn't play. Because it is one piece, not two pieces or four pieces or whatever. Because if you had something with just a couple of pieces, you could work a way around that.
Yeah.
But even the crocheting and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They only used that to show time passage, and that was it.
And then there was Crichton going, do not blow your nose. And it says, why? Well, let's forgo the noise. They get to the really gross part where you have to open it up and look at the contents. I mean, what are you expecting to see in there?
Venus de Milo. Basically, yes. And it is, it's gross, but how many times have you seen something go,
yeah.
Did people do it without thinking? But as soon as somebody points out, you sitting there thinking, did I do that? Because people do it without thinking, and you're sitting there thinking, really? That's true. That is disgusting. But yeah, I think Quarantine definitely. It's out of these. This is one of my two all-time favorites.
Yeah.
And this season is giving me two of my all-time favorites. So you obviously know what one is my other one, and you also by process of elimination.
Yeah,
my least favorite one is.
Well, first we should talk about Psycho Rimmer. And the thing is, it wouldn't be funny. Like the King of the Potato People bit is funny because he's just he says it with such conviction. He really has gone this nuts, and he's really playing that game of there's one thing I can't stand, it's crazy people, and I bowed before him and I begged, and then they, do you have a you have a magic carpet? It's like, yeah, a little 3-seater. And
Uh-huh.
there's, so you telling me you're completely sane?
Basically, he turned it around on them, basically by saying all these crazy things I said you're agreeing with.
Yeah.
You're saying. And even the fact that the cat at the end goes, I think we would have been better luck with the potato king. Just goes to show how far he's gone. It basically even a made up entity is actually a better chance for you than anything.
Yeah.
That he is. But I think I definitely think it could have been a slower decline rather than quite a sharp decline.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so.
Because at one point he was fine. The next time you see him, he's completely gone.
Yeah, that's the thing. Because like with the by the beginning, he is so typically Rimmer, so typically kind of gloating, and then you just see the complete transformation. The Sucker Punch is, you think that Rimmer's been watching them having a laugh, but no, he's actually gone slowly mad.
Yes,
and that's kind of where it hits home. If there's one thing I would have,
I think there would have been a couple of nice ones where you're sitting there thinking, that's typical Rimmer. It's a wee bit dark, but it's typical Rimmer, and then basically realizing, yeah, that might have been typical Rimmer, and it was dark because he was heading into insanity. So there was no midpoint where you're sitting there thinking, that was typical Rimmer, but there's something a wee bit off. So he could have done something it was so, yes, you can imagine Rimmer doing, but he would have had to be in a bad place to do that.
Yeah.
And then the next thing is when he's gone completely Fruit Loops.
Mm-hmm. The one thing that did stick out to me, I thought, was, where's Holly in this? Because like after he goes mad, you'd think maybe they should have. Yeah, I mean, I think it would be good if they kind of maybe explained that somehow Rim had locked Holly out or something.
Yeah.
Or maybe
they need Holly to run the ship, so how could you lock Holly out? Because yes, Holly can't open the doors, can't do this, can't do that, but Holly doesn't just keep the doors shut.
Yeah,
she basically runs everything, and if he is putting Lister's life in jeopardy, considering he's only generated to keep him sane, why wouldn't Holly just go doink off? Because he's only there because of Lister. If Lister's not there, there's no need for him.
Yeah.
So if he's going to kill the only living crew member, why wouldn't Holly step in?
Do you know
Even
what
in her deranged state.
Do you know what I thought might have been cool? If Holly got infected as well.
Yeah.
The
two of them would have been playing off each other. A hologram and but how would they have cured Holly? Because that would have been a more difficult one.
Yeah. Or better yet, it could have been like Holly has to shut down to cure herself or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
That would have probably been better and just left things on manual. Whatever. Just the basic systems running just enough that she didn't need to maintain for the 2-3 months.
Yeah.
Well, or 5 days a week. But yeah, it just seemed a wee bit weird that Holly was sort of taken right out of it, because if Holly was in there, it wouldn't have worked. But they seem to have taken Holly right out by saying he's locked me out. Really? Even the captain can't lock the computer right out because the computer's needed to run so much of the ship.
Yeah.
That just seems weird.
Yeah.
And it did seem a bit weird, but it's the type of weird that enhanced the program, because I think if they'd actually brought smart thinking into it, it wouldn't have been as funny.
Yeah. And it had to be Rimmer's kind of star role as the villain kind of thing.
Oh, aye.
Yes.
Even the fact is when they basically the luck virus and they find the things to knock him out, even when he goes down with Mr. Flibble and it's the two of them actually go out at the same time, so he's still doing the Mr. Flibble bit right up until the last minute. I thought that is just classic acting, because how many people would have went and then still given a wee jerk or something, but Mr. Flibble wouldn't have moved because it would have been all about their scene of getting knocked out, whereas he still did the scene of the two of them, Mr. Flibble as well, getting knocked out, giving it the and at the same time. I just thought it was funny, and it was just, I think it just shows the skill of the cast that something so simple is it's just such a big impact on a story. Mr. Flibble basically passing out in such a way that is just as funny. When
I have to say, in general, I think this season's really good at the money shots, the iconic bits.
Yes. Because even you look at any one of them, even later episodes.
Yeah.
Right. For instance, well, we all know Angels and Demons is my least favourite. But even in that, there is some money shots in that are just so funny.
Yeah.
No denying it. Even saying it's my least favourite of all of them, and it's one I would quite happily skip, doesn't mean there's no parts in it I find hilarious. Can't even say the word hilarious.
Shall we get into Demons and Angels then? By the way, you might be surprised. That's like Demons and Angels is my favourite of the season.
See, the thing is, I can understand it because it's just, I don't know if it's too dark or too silly or because all the things that I enjoy are in Demons and Angels. Yeah. But I think maybe it's just going to be a bit too much for me. Like, for instance, the Angels, the higher crew.
Yeah.
I can't see it. I can't see any one of them being like that at their best.
Well,
I would have preferred the cat. Yes, maybe not superficial like that, but more. I don't know. More forgiving and more empathetic, which is the opposite from what Cat is, and where Rimmer, braver, more ace-like.
I think
that's what I was looking at.
Well, Crichton, I think, is still Crichton, isn't he? The High Crichton is still Crichton, isn't he?
Except when he's doing the ding.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but I don't know. I think it's just a case of maybe I was expecting more.
Do you know what? Do you want to think if they could have done different? Is maybe if the ships had a longer lifespan, and so basically by the time Starbuck got on the ship, it actually felt that the highs had existed on the ship for a time, so that it made sense why the place looked lived in and why they had these routines and customs already.
Yes.
I feel like that's what was.
An hour doesn't really make a lot of sense.
No. And
how did the Lister or the lower Lister? It got blown away at the end. Yeah, I mean, it's just, I don't know. I can understand like the cat, lower cat, or the demon cat. We'll call it demon and angels rather, so we can. But the demon cat, to me, worked fine because it's very feral. So they meet. Although I think the tusks were just a wee bit over. I think they could have still had tusks, but a bit smaller and made it easy. But it was the fact is, it was very feral, and the looks and all that were unimportant. It's all about meat and aggression. Yes, because that's completely opposite from what the cat is. But being a cat, he could be like that. Yeah. And whereas the angel cat, yes, it could be more hippies, as in clothes aren't the big thing. Yeah. But other aspects of cat behavior you could have. Whereas it's all higher human behavior. That was the aspect, I suppose, it didn't work for me, because I would have preferred you had the lower part. So the cat demon worked very well, whereas the cat angel wasn't believable for me. And I think that's what it was. It's just because I was probably looking for aspects of their character, which didn't see. So I would have preferred to have an ace character for Angel Rimmer. And the demon Rimmer was probably just perfect in that respect. So I think the demon of certain characters worked better, whereas I didn't think the angel characters of each of the characters weren't the best. Do you know what I mean? So the cat and Rimmer demons, I thought were spot on.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's just one of those, and I think a Crichton demon would have been a bit more simulant, like more murderous rather than just. He looked more like a, what did they call it? The rot. This.
Oh, the his brother Cain.
Yes,
brother Abel later on.
Yeah, that one would basically, or even the one that you remember, the Spearhead 3, which had the brain rot.
Oh yeah.
That's to me what it looked more like, or reminded me more of. Whereas I would have preferred it was more of a psycho simulant from any of the other episodes, that type of thing. But it's that aspect of it. So some of them were really good, and other ones I probably expected too much. And I think that's why it's my least favourite, because probably I expected more.
I think I have to go into why it's one of my favourites. Yeah. It's so cinematic. Like you got like Red Dwarf exploding. You got the, right from the first scene, like it's this jeopardy. It's like ship. We've got an abandoned ship. We don't have a ship anymore, and Red Dwarf has just exploded on us, and like it's just the predicament has got that much bit worse. And true to form, like Lister's the one who says, can we scan the debris, and like, he's being resourceful, whereas Rimmer's like, let's jump the other two out, let's chuck the other two out, and we might be able to make it, kind of thing. And that the perfect thing of that is like you're seeing in there just the microcosm of what the story is about, because you got Rimmer being devious and like Rimmer being his worst self, and you got Lister kind of doing the right thing for the group, and then you've got, obviously, as it's extrapolated, you see the good and evil of the, replicated. You see like there's the better selves and the worse selves, and like, but you see like that's in them as well. It's sick, but I just love just how mean and cruel the humor gets once they land on the low ship, and
But I think even the fact is the hires went over to the low ship. I don't know, especially like the Crichton getting shot. Oh, your gun's going off, and you're sitting there thinking these are meant to be the hires, as in the best of the best. So,
I think
so. It's the fact is that's the wee bits like that played out, and I'm sitting there thinking,
well, no, but I mean, like for them to assume the worst in them is probably interpreted as a negative, so that's removed. And unfortunately, it's kind of saying, look, you need some degree of suspicion, you need some degree of aggression in order to survive. If you don't, then you're going to be gullible. You're going to think everyone is as good as you, and that was the problem with Crichton. And if you adhere completely to a pacifist rule, everyone, peace is the way kind of thing, then you're lost in a world where a lot of people do mean meanly. And
like I never thought about it like that, but I don't know, it's just maybe it's, as I said, I expected different, because we have seen a ultra positive Rimmer Ace.
Yeah, but he was.
I would prefer a more Ace-like character, but not necessarily Ace, but Ace-like.
Yeah, but Ace was the way he was because he was hardened by experience, and I think that would have been taken out. They would have probably gone for the. It's almost like if you take out the traits that make you your negative traits, then all you become is kind of. I think maybe the point was they all conform to this cult of advancement because they'd had all their negative stuff taken out, and that's kind of why. I do get what you mean. I mean, I feel like Crichton is the only high that feels in character, that feels like the Crichton we know. Mm-hmm. And Rimmer, not so much. But I mean, I have to say, when the bit where Lister kills the High Rimmer and like he vanishes, there is something. That is the hard pitting bit. I think you think, oh god, that's
he stabs the cat and then he crushes.
No, he stabs Lister. Cat gets blown up with Crichton when they're checking out that grenade. It's like, it's a greeting, sparkling, welcome all kind of thing. I love the bit where Lister's like, he looks at Crichton who's been shot like 5 times accidentally, and he goes, "Is he dead?" And like Rimmer goes, "We can only hope." Like, and again, it's like
there is. That's what I'm saying. There's enough funny parts in it, but I think it's because I think it's definitely me. I was expecting more, if not different. And I think that's what it is. Maybe I was just looking at a higher beings, or as rather than being. I can understand the aspects you're saying about all the negative taken out.
Yeah.
So things that would push them forward because they don't have that negative to push them to try and attain more.
Well, I mean, the negative is what makes them shrewd, and like if you take that out, then they're not shrewd. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, you've seen The Enemy Within in Star Trek, haven't you?
Yes.
That's the one where Kirk's split in two by a transporter. And
yes. So you've basically got the alternate universe, the dark universe.
Well, no, it's more the point. Well, the thing with the transporter accident is it creates a good Kirk and a bad Kirk. But the problem is the good Kirk is so good that he can't make risky decisions. He can't decide, and that's a big point is made of. Is like you need that in order, he needs both of them are important to make the whole. You can't just be the best of Kirk because what's considered the best of Kirk isn't, because it's the worst of the well disciplined that gives him the thrust to make.
It's basically knowing that sending somebody to his death, or possibly sending somebody to his death. Whereas the good Kirk wouldn't be able to send somebody into danger.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. So, yes, a good captain has to know that there's risks involved in every decision. And if you don't take the risks into place, then you can't make the decision. So, but see, I do get that. But I suppose that's where it fails for me. It didn't bring that across to me, and I think that's why, because maybe I was just expecting different, which is unfortunate because I do love Red Dwarf, and I think this is one of the strongest seasons. It's just one that it feels for me.
See, I got the sense maybe part of it was that it got too dark. Was that it or not?
No. See, the dark humor parts I thought probably worked better. Because like the demon cat or the lower Lister, or the lower Rimmer were hilarious. I'm going to whip you to within an inch of your life, then I'm going to treat you.
That got such a laugh for me when there's that pullback, looking for someone, and like you can see Lister's reaction, holding stick, and it's just so it's like you wouldn't get away with that now, would you?
Oh no! You look at accordingly, Danny John-Jules when he first saw him going on stage, he was basically near enough wetting himself. He was rolling around the ground. He just couldn't stand up because it was just so funny seeing him come out in that costume. Because I know fine well with quarantine, Chris says, I'll wear the gingham dress if every one of the other guys wear the gingham. That's why at the end they're all standing there going, wah! With the gingham dress on. Because so what did he say? I will only wear the suspenders and stocking if. But, you know what I mean? So there was the darker parts, I think, worked better for me because they were the darker parts. The Lister knows much, and Crichton, I thought, didn't work as well. But the cat and Rimmer, their dark parts were definitely two of the funniest aspects of it because I could see that part of them because you had the dark part of Rimmer being the deviant, just getting anything he wants and doesn't care, which he's already in his way of doing what he wants to do for him. Bugger the consequences for everyone else. It's only because he can't stops him. Whereas in the dark, he does. And the cat is the ultimate feline, as in very feral and stuff like that. And that's where I suppose I was looking at for the opposite on the good side. I was looking for the best of the cat.
Do you notice though that with the evil versions, it's like Rimmer is more part of the team than he was as ordinarily. Like he's part of that gang, and they're just a horrible gang, and he's in his element with them,
and he's probably the stronger of the characters, and so he seemed to be more in charge. But I definitely loved the Rimmer and the cat demon.
Yeah.
Or the lower part. And I think that's what it is, because those two were so well done. I was hoping the higher ones were done differently. So you could still be the best of the best. They just seemed all quite the same.
Yeah.
And it's basically effectively saying is, if nobody's got any negative, then we're all the exact same.
Well,
and
it's like
because there is still going to be things that each person knows differently, does differently. Even if it's also negative.
But it's also they're in that culture where they never come in contact with anything negative, so they're not used to negative and they don't know how to interpret it. So there is the whole thing of maybe they don't mean harm to us, kind of thing, and
yes, but even the fact is, you think about it, if you bring someone up and it's all positive, two people, and they have no negatives, they're going to be different anyway. It's not necessarily saying because something happened that changed this. It just might be slightly different interests, and it's not negative, but and then they would be slightly different for something. So someone might be slightly braver, or somebody might be slightly more intelligent, but they're still positive influences all the way through. It's just that they seemed all samey, and I think that's where it was. There was no difference between the uppers, whereas in the lowers they were all so different, and you could see that working. And I think that's where it went for me. You went from the group as in individuals to the evils, which were ultra individuals, but they were all very similar, and they worked as a team, even though they were. Whereas you went to the hires, and they just seemed they seemed an individual.
Yeah.
They didn't seem, if you could put anyone in any other one's roles, and it would have been exactly the same. And that's what I suppose got it for me. It just didn't seem right because they were interchangeable.
Yeah.
And that's whereas the opposite end or even in the middle, none of them are interchangeable. Although you've had Chris Barry actually doing a good part of each of them before, they're not interchangeable. They're all independent and they all stand out. Yeah. Whereas the hires, they were. You could have had any one of them playing all four parts, and they would have been exactly the same.
Yeah.
See, that's where I see it, and that's the one part I suppose it takes it out for me. And it was just not the dark; it was the light. Just didn't go for me well. Yeah, I do like light comedy,
but like the
dark comedy. But
yeah, but I mean the dark stuff. I mean, it's like there's a real atmosphere to the low Red Dwarf. It's just it feels like a real dangerous environment throughout, and it just I love that. But I love the bit where Cat goes into the bunk room and he finds the movie collection. Nice movie collection. Revenge of the Mutants, Black Gore Monster, and that screaming with sharp things in your head. Like and I quite like
imagine. You can imagine. So they would have been better if they'd actually done some actual movies that are out there just now. You imagine if they actually literally got some of the American B movies and read those titles.
Yeah.
But that's the worst part is those type of movies are already out there.
Well, but the thing is, by reading the titles, it's saying like even the subtleties removed. There's no nuance. This is just the titles are just a description of the worst things in the movie, kind of thing. Because that's in a way, it's like it's removing the poetry of how you do a kind of title.
And you imagine reading some of the actual movies that were out at the time. They had a very similar idea. Yeah. And that I think it would have been a nice wee Easter egg that they were actually reading out real movies.
Like what video nasties you mean? Like
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you imagine them turning around going things like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
That's a massacre with chainsaws in Texas, but it's a real movie. It's that type of thing. You imagine if the Easter egg people going, are they real movies? They're so bad that we have got those movies now. Whereas I think that just for that, I think it would have been funny. And it's the same as when they were talking about the music.
Yeah.
I think it would have been funnier if they actually mentioned some music that was already out there. Yes, I can understand that not everybody's going to get the same jokes. It'd be like when the
you mean like if they had a Timmy Mallet album in there or something?
Yeah, that type of thing. Because you imagine in Meltdown, remember it says there's James Last.
Yeah.
I mean that type of thing?
Yeah.
So they could have a joke. It could be even their friends' stuff. They say to their friends, "Listen, we're going to put in. Do you mind if we put yours?" They say, because the dwarfers are going to buy that if you mention my name, and that they'll think, "Oh, that's a real mute. That's a real thing." So I think it would have been funnier if they'd actually, at the low end, they'd actually named some stuff, and even at the high end, Cliff Richard and stuff like that.
Yeah.
All these, the ones that are seen very positively, they could have actually put those type of things in there just as a mention of it. Speak to the artist and say, well, this is what we're going to do. And the ones that have got a joke and quite happy to laugh at themselves, they would have probably turned around and goes, that's a good idea. No problem.
Yeah.
And I think it would have worked a wee bit better if they were real, especially in the lower ship. I think that would be hilarious because you can imagine people going, I need to get my hands on those movies. They sound really interesting.
Yeah.
But it is my least favourite, and it's only because I probably had higher expectations of what to expect. So I'm aware it's my expectations that makes it my least favourite. But it's still Red Dwarf, so if I had a choice between that one and any other, I would still pick that one because it's I mean, it's still Red Dwarf. It's just one that if somebody said to me, out of those 5 episodes, or out of those 6 episodes, you could watch 4. I already know what one's going to skip that one, so it makes it more difficult to choose the other one that I'm going to miss, rather than saying, oh, I've got 2 I don't want to watch. It's one I would be quite happy to go, right, I'll skip that one, and what other one will I skip now? And that would be difficult.
You know, when it came out on video, I'm surprised it got away with a PG. I was expecting it to get a 15 because it's just so gross and gory.
Oh, even the fact that when Lister comes down the stairs in the fishnets, I thought, they get away with that? Just in case of the way he was walking down. I just thought, no.
Yeah.
I just thought it was hilarious. And even he's describing what he was going to do to him. I'm going to whip you to everything and into your life. Then I'm going to have you. I thought,
well, the grossest bit for me is still the maggots, the strawberry with the maggots.
Oh, the strawberry.
Yeah.
I just thought that was hilarious. It's a bit tangy and it's a bit wriggly and it's a bit crunchy and he's going.
I like he said. I like the callback when like Rimmer's like, so now there's 2 red dwarfs. One of them succulent and divine. The other, and Lister goes, fish bait.
But pardon me. Got that thing. I think it's just a case of that. My expectations ruined it in that aspect for me, I suppose.
I mean, do you think maybe they were kind of here because, like, this is the first time they've hinted at what if they had to abandon ship and was just stuck on starboard? Do you think maybe they were toying with the idea of getting rid of Red Dwarf, possibly? Because that's what they do next season, isn't it?
They do, and I see the problem is with that. At the lowest level, I dislike that. The fact is, Red Dwarf was missing, and they were constantly changing it because that's what the show is. Red Dwarf. It's the same as I keep on saying. Every time there's something happened to one of the ships, it's always Starbug 1.
Yeah.
Going to either scrape off all the numbers and just have them called Starbug so you can have as many as you want, or put different numbers on them. So how many Starbugs have been destroyed, smashed up, crashed into the exterior doors?
Yeah.
But it's always Starbug 1. Like, for instance, in Terraform.
Yeah.
Normally, the ones that go along the ground, it's normally Blue Midget. Why didn't you just use Blue Midget? Rather than having the Starbug with the caterpillar tracks?
Yeah, that would have been you mean like it could have been a nice throwback to just see Blue Midget again, you mean?
Yes, because the Blue Midget is one that actually is for actually on land.
Yeah.
Yes, it walks, but you know, I mean, they could have actually had the caterpillar tracks and it had crouched down and it's just driving like a car. Whereas they basically put the caterpillar tracks on Starbug.
Yeah.
And I thought I would have preferred if Blue Midget was the one that was driving along the ground, because they have put that down that the Blue Midget is a land craft.
I mean, in a way, Demons and Angels, it's kind of almost a spiritual sequel to Meltdown, isn't it? Because they even say we got the we built this device out of the matter paddle they used last time. Because and Meltdown was a very black comedy, wasn't it?
It was. Yeah. Basically, he survived. He won the war by killing everything.
Yeah, exactly.
And it is a very dark, because you look at the most warmongering people out there, and they're going to say is winning at any cost is fine. But that's why you've got somebody that's willing to press the button on atomic weapons, because at any cost, as long as I don't lose. But everybody will die. But I won't lose.
I mean, at first, like Rimmer kind of when he first gives that speech about it, it sounds kind of poetic. It sounds valiant. He's saying like, yes, we've got to defeat these evil forces because these Nazis are going to kill these people anyway. But it soon becomes apparent that he's just treating it like a risk game, and it's all about winning. It's not about. He doesn't really think of these people as people, and
they're pieces.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think Angels and Demons, I know why it's my least favourite. And I can understand where I'm wrong in certain aspects of it. So I do admit winning me, but I think it's because my expectations are probably higher.
Yeah.
And that's you can understand. I suppose I'm expecting different, and instead of all the goods being the exact same, because they're individual characters, and we have seen the best of some of the characters. Yes, I can understand it was negative things that caused them to be there, but you can still have aspects of that character. So you could have an ace character, but he's slightly more forgiving and stuff like that, rather than just being a case of this is the worst type of person and sneering and stuff like that. He could be that type of thing. So he's a bit more. So it's the best of the ace Rimmer, rather than just being the best of the Rimmer, which is just the same as Crichton, the same as Lister, the same as Cat. And I suppose that's what it is. The characters were all just so similar that any one person would have been the same as all four. And that's where I suppose that's where it failed for me, because the negative ones got two of them spot on, and the other two I could see.
Yeah.
But with the hires, there was just nothing different. They were all the same, and I was just expecting more out of it. So it wasn't the lores; it was the hires that failed it for me.
I mean, yeah, but I mean that's for me. I mean, I've always I have noticed it's not a popular story, which has always struck me as well, because I've always I've always liked how it's put together. I've always liked how how cinematic it is, how ambitious it is.
Aye, and it's smart as well. It's not just another episodic bang crash. Look what happened. It's a smart story.
I feel the season would have been missing something without it, myself, if you know what I mean.
I can't imagine anything else we would have been able to put in based on some of the other stories I've heard that got dropped. I can't imagine them being as good.
No.
But it's my least favourite of Red Dwarf is turning around and saying it's still Red Dwarf.
Yeah.
But we've all got stories like that, and that's what makes us all different. We've all got things we like, with things we hate, but we still want to talk.
Yeah.
And it's just a case of everybody as long as we understand where each other's going.
I mean, would you agree that they think that they've got the pacing right for it, and they're getting the pacing, and they're getting the pacing right as it goes on? Because I mean, the final countdown I think is paced perfectly, and with Back to Reality we get that again. The pacing's right.
I think the pacing was spot on. The only parts I thought dragged a wee bit is just when the hires were walking and they were discussing as they were walking down. That's the only parts that seemed to drag, but the rest of it, the pacing on it was quite well done, because you didn't feel as if you were sitting waiting for something to happen. You were just seeing something happens or something didn't happen, and just they were doing something to get on to the next one. It was quite well paced. Whereas the parts with the hires, I thought that sort of slowed it down, like the dancing interpretation. Funny to an extent, but it sort of slowed it down a wee bit too much for me.
Yeah, I mean, once they land on the low ship, it is compelling. It's kind of gripping.
Yes. Mm-hmm. It definitely is, and the low ship is actually definitely the better of the two.
Yeah.
For story progression.
Do you know what? I almost think it's a shame they didn't kind of leave the high and low ship. Well, the low. I thought it would have been cool if they didn't delete the if say they weren't limited time, and so basically the low ship was always going to be out there, and there'd be future encounters with their worst selves. Kind of thing.
Or even if they actually did a hollyhopped, so the low ship did know what it was and had fiddled with it. So when it did and it brought them back, it bounced the two of them to the alternate universes. So if they ever did a parallel universe type thing again, they'd bounce into them again. And that's when they find out, wait a minute, they didn't actually get all brought back. They got bounced. So because they say, oh, look, the lows didn't even know what they had. Yeah. But what if they did? And they had tweaked it because they knew what they were wanting to do. So they left it for them, and hence the reason why they didn't try too hard to stop them, because they wanted them to bounce them to an alternate.
Now, am I right that they actually used a new model? Like there was I read that apparently for the first 4 seasons they had the same model, and it got run down, and they had to get rid of it. And for this new season, they had a new model, and so that's why you see a lot of new models.
It was a longer one initially, and then it becomes a bit more stocky.
Yeah.
I think it was because you could see with the graphics on it as well. The graphics are clearer as it's the episode starting. You basically see the Red Dwarf coming in, and it is a lot sharper, and so they had to refilm it. And I think it was because the old one, they were wanting to update it, and it was just they basically, I think they effectively cut a big chunk out of it, and then redid it, repainted it, and everything. That hence the reason why it looks a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe I'm just a sucker for the idea of going to an evil Red Dwarf. I'm a sucker for that kind of environment.
Yeah, but I do like the alternate universe type things. Hence the reason why I like Sliders and stuff like that. I like those Tether stories, and although Captain Cockney Spock's in there, I do like time travel stories. I know he hates them. I don't know if his channel, his thing means that he actually dislikes those Tether ones because they're
the best.
They're basically they're not something that's easily resolved. So I can understand why he doesn't like them, but I do like those things. I do like the parallel universe ones as well.
I think the best kind of time travel line in this season has to be Crichton's, I have to go back in time now and sacrifice myself in order that we can get into this mess we're in the first place.
What did they say? It was something like an egg.
Yeah.
Or basically, what happens next? Says, while I'm talking to you, the Inquisitor jumps me like this. And it basically explains what's happening. Or, excuse me, sir, can I interrupt you for a moment? It causes them a distraction. Huh?
Yeah.
Can I distract you for a minute? It's just, I do like time travel type stories, and that's why I think Inquisitors worked quite well, because they played with it. And Angels and Demons, I think the parallel universe would have been nicer if they had messed around with it. Instead of the Angels and Demons being killed, the ships bounced.
Yeah.
But somehow they got onto the good ship, because that's what they were wanting to do, because they'd already killed the 4 from that ship. So if they'd managed to get onto the right ship before it bounced, then you've got a wreck with 4 bodies, or 3 bodies and a light beat, and then in the good one, you've got the good one with the 4 evil ones.
Yeah.
And then you basically, they maybe bounce to another, and then the next time they see them, there's a evil empire.
Yes.
But no, I mean, I think that would have worked a wee bit better if it had kept them so the lures get onto the higher ship, and then instead of the two of them getting brought together, they bounced out.
Yeah.
But also, that episode is one of the first where one of the cast kills someone.
Yeah.
Because they've never done that before. They've always, the aliens, yes, or the simulants, but they've actually killed a other. Because it was the Rimmer, it was the Lister.
Yeah.
Or it was in that.
Yeah.
So basically, they killed another human.
Yeah.
And it's the first time that's happened. And the good thing is they didn't actually have. It had to be the cat. It literally had to be the cat. Can't imagine. Well, we know Lister couldn't do it because it's himself. You know Rimmer couldn't do it because he's a hologram, and you know Crichton couldn't do it because he couldn't end a life.
Yeah.
So it had to be the cat, and at least they didn't actually make it sort of ambiguous where it's either it's been Lister or Crichton that did it, because that would actually pop up too many questions.
You know,
the cat, you can see the cat going bang, right? Next, where's my new jumper? You know what
I mean, do you think maybe they should have done more with an evil Lister sneaking on board? Maybe because he's killed too quickly in a way.
I think so. Because you imagine the back to reality, instead of the squid actually killing him, they get back to the ship.
Yeah.
And it's whatever the evil Lister's been doing, the Lord Lister's been doing on the ship in the meantime, that causes them to think their game's ended. I think that would have been a bit better, because they effectively think they crashed, and that's what woke them up. Whereas something that the other Lister did, maybe something that knocks, basically an explosion, it kills him, it backfires and knocks them out, and that's when they finish it. Hence the reason why they wake up. It would have been fun to have whatever the despair squid spraying the ship with them on it, but managing to get back to the ship, and it all happens on Red Dwarf.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I think they wanted to kind of get to they wanted to just, for pacing reasons, I think they wanted to kind of kill them right there and then.
Yes.
So should we talk about Back to Reality then?
Yes.
That is your other favorite.
One of the best episodes ever.
Yeah.
Even Timothy Spall was great.
I wish I'd seen it on first broadcast, because it plays that trick on you. You almost kind of, I would have loved to watch it in a context where I thought maybe this has really all just been a computer game all along.
Yes. Is it going to come back for next year? Is this the last of the episodes? And they're just basically saying, doing the Americans, he just woke up and it was all a dream.
Yeah.
It was all a computer game. Because if they'd finished that on Back to Reality and then started it in season 6 of the second part of how they get back to the ship, they could have left it at that point with things getting to the point where they're about to kill themselves.
Yeah.
And then left it there. And people would think, is that how it ends?
Yeah.
They would definitely need to bring that back for a season 6, because we want to know what happens. But if they decided not to bring it back, what a way to go out.
You mean like they could have done it as a two-parter and maybe done the second part as the start of the next season? Where
they could have literally finished it with them putting the gun to their head the first time.
Yeah.
Or even discussing it, let's all use the one gun and stand like that, and then it do and finished.
Yeah.
It would have expanded it a wee bit so you could get a wee bit more of aspects of it, and they wouldn't need to actually put the two, letting them in the truck, basically going over the bumps and stuff like that.
Another reason I think it works is because this season they've gone more in the action direction, like the action Jeopardy, and so turning out that it's all been a computer game all along fits. Because it's felt like this has been a survival horror computer game of some kind.
Yes, and even the aspects like when he's walking out and he looks in the view, you see the new crew, and surprise, surprise, they've only been playing it for how long? 20 minutes. They've got a higher score. They've already found Kachansky. The hologram is an advanced hologram because it's got the H with a circle, and the Crichton looks more human.
Also, it's just the episode that just before, because it's the episode where Red Dwarf's blowing up.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
so
exactly.
It's in a strange way. I feel like in some ways it would have hit a bit hard. Watching it now, I think it would have hit a bit hard if they had brought Claire Grogan back to be that Kachansky, because that would have it would have hit harder for Lister because watching it, because he's
watching it because it would have been his Kachansky rather than a Kachansky.
Yeah. A part of me was,
I think that would have actually been better because he's looking in and he's seeing his Kachansky that he remembers rather than a Kachansky.
Do you know another thing I thought about that scene, and I've always thought this about this scene, is it almost seems like it's strange that Grant and Naylor were kind of in the process of developing the Red Dwarf USA.
And they were going to actually go to a movie, so that's what it was spreading out to be.
Well, because
the reason why the Chloe Annette came in, because they needed a female for selling it to an American audience and stuff like that, and for a movie they had to have a female cast.
Well, the thing is, like, it feels like this is watching the worst nightmare of what an American Red Dwarf would be like, where it's just macho and and it's
I actually quite agree with that. Yes, it's what it. Did you not actually find the parts of it are quite relevant to modern politics?
What the fascist element?
Yes. In 2021, the way politicians treat people, like the voter kernel and stuff like that, you can just imagine certain places you're sitting there thinking, yeah, you don't agree with me, this is what could happen. Just because they talk that way. And I thought there's some aspects of it, if people looked at it at the time, they would look at it and go, don't be silly, that voting system would never... Really? It's not as bad, but you can see it going that way.
I think, to be honest, I wish they'd kind of introduced the hints of a fascist society sooner, because that's supposed to be pivotal to why Lister wants to end it all.
Yes.
And I feel like they could have done that bit earlier on.
It's true. That could work, because they start off by saying how Lister, the great and atheist, jumpstarts the Second World in the game, but so that was why he failed at him. And then they went on how the guy who thinks he's a great guy is this fascist murderer. In effect, it's the exposition of it. It's basically they didn't show you other aspects of it apart from that one guy.
Well, I think like they was kind of doing it in stages, was because when they first come out and Timothy Spall points out, you played the game badly, you missed the point of Rimmer, you Lister didn't achieve anything. So it's like from the start they're saying, okay, your lives then were fictional, but you failed even at them.
Yes,
and like. Yeah.
The one part I didn't like, which I thought was a glitch, was the 3 gunshots when he's meant to be shooting the wee girl. You see the gun go out and you see him going like that, 1, 2, 3. But it turns around, it was the Hammett shot. So why would his hand be coming back as if he's shooting?
Maybe he was...
He's basically jerking, but...
Well, I mean, he could have... Maybe he missed. Maybe he was shooting the child and he missed. And it was only because Crichton shot him simultaneously that he didn't get to kill the girl.
I don't know. It just seemed a wee bit weird. Whereas the 3 shots, it gives you the impression he fired the 3 shots.
Yeah,
and then he falls, and you see Crichton standing there with the gun.
Yeah,
and that's the point. I thought they're implying he actually fired the 3 shots just by the way his hand went, and time with each of the shots. Yes, it could have been a case of his jerking each time, but it was only his hand that went, and that's the part I thought.
That reminds me.
For me, it sort of was like a wee bend in the matrix. It just didn't make a lot of sense. with just his hand going as if he'd fired 3 times.
My favorite scene like that is probably in Mind of Evil when the Doctor Who episode where there's that criminal who's holding Joe hostage. He's got the gun. You see a close up of the gun fire, and then you pull back and it's the Brigadier. And because at first you think he's shot the Doctor, and then you realize no, the gun was the Brigadier's. And I thought that was brilliant editing, and it was brilliant kind of
because that was the thing. You saw the gun go off.
Yeah,
you didn't actually see him go like that, and then you see the bang, and then suddenly he falls, and then the Brigadier's behind him. It was the fact is he does that, and then it goes into the gun, and it going off. You just assume it's the same gun.
Yeah.
And then when it pulls back, it's a different gun. See when they do shots like that, you're sitting there thinking, yes, it allows you to think one thing. Yeah. Is that one trying to show you and imply that he shot 3 times?
Yeah.
And then he falls and you see Crichton standing there. That's what I'm saying. It's clumsier. It just didn't, for me, it didn't make sense because it looked as if he was the one that made the shot, but he fell over because it's meant to have been Crichton that shot him.
Yeah. I mean, I think I have to say when they're in that kind of car chase, there's that part of me that but there is that part of me that wishes we could have seen what they were seeing. Like all the kind of the helicopters and all that. And
do you know the worst part of that? See if they had the budget to do that, it would have been a better ending, because at that point you already knew they were hallucinating. I would have preferred if they did get in the car and they were actually in the car and they were doing all that in a car.
Yeah.
And then the bits are running around streets rather than running around the boxes.
Yeah.
They might not have been, they could have been sitting in the car looking up and you hear in the background and the fire rockets are doing this. So you didn't need to see anything because it could have been fog glass, but they were actually in the car, even if you didn't see what happened. But if you see them in the car still dressed the way they were, that's exactly what's happening. Because they went back to the back where they're in the box and they're good, funny. Yeah, but when it gets to the point where they're about to shoot themselves, you already know what's happened. So it's not as impactful.
Yeah, I think the best kind of car chase scenes are ones where you actually the camera keeps you in the car for the most part. So you
See, I think that would have been fun if it was actually them in the car and they were doing the same talking and they were going over bumps, so they had somebody doing that with the car, making it as if it was going over a bump, or they were you could hear explosions in the outside or bike noises. So you were still in the car, you didn't see anything, but you still had that aspect that this is what they're seeing. Then they jump out of the car, run down a street, run around a corner into an alleyway. That would have worked better rather than them running around and turning. And then you already know at the point where they're about to shoot themselves that it's a hallucination. It would have been better if they got to that point and then they start hearing Holly, you'd be going, where's she coming from? Because they've kept you in that this is what's happening.
Yeah.
And then you suddenly hear Holly and you're going, where the hell she come from? You know what I mean? Because you'd be sitting there thinking, I didn't expect that, but because they'd shown it running up to that point, it would have been nicer if they just in the car and then you see them running down streets rather than just running into that alleyway at the end. It would have been, I think, more powerful.
Yeah.
But I still think it's one of the best ever episodes of Red Dwarf.
Going back to what you said before, I think one thing I do like about it is this is Hattie Hayridge's last Holly appearance, and this is the one where she saves the day for a change.
Yes. Basically she's the one that actually worked it out, got through to Crichton, and then basically resolved it, even though she wasn't in a lot of it. She's in at the beginning, at the end. But the fact is, I think it would have been... It's just unfortunate they actually showed you it was a hallucination before they brought them out of the hallucination.
And it's fitting for her because it's almost like she becomes the intervening angel of the group. Like she's the one who kind of gives them the voice. She's the voice that says, put the gun down, don't end it all.
Yes.
Yeah, and that kind of fits the look of Holly.
Yeah,
of her Holly. Yeah.
Although I must admit, I did like the low Holly with the
I
black.
did. Yeah, that was. She must have really
I think
enjoyed
it
that.
looked a lot better with it. She looked a lot better with the black hair and black lipstick.
Yeah.
So she did, but I suppose it's because it's a complete contra to Holly as she is.
Yeah.
Whereas in the good Holly, you just saw her with a cape or a hood on.
Yeah.
I think for a final episode for the season, I think it was one of the best ways to finish it.
Have you seen the interviews on it? The extras on the DVD?
I have, but it's not been a while. It's been a wee while since I saw the interviews because, believe it or not, the box set, that box set doesn't have any of them on it.
Oh, I thought the box set was only the first 4.
No, the box set's the first 8 seasons.
Oh, okay.
It's 2 small boxes in it, and I checked them all. I have got other bits and pieces with all the extras, but I've got a couple of Smeg Up DVDs, and it's got extras, outtakes, and stuff like that for different seasons. So I've got one of those, so I'll need to dig that out to have a look at over them because it's been a wee while because they're on different DVDs. It's a pain, I must admit.
The thing is, when they first screened this, before they kind of edited it, like apparently it didn't get that many laughs because they wanted to kind of get a laughing track, and I think they just showed it as raw footage or something. They hadn't kind of properly edited it, and apparently Rob Grant got really down about it. He thought, "Oh, this episode's rubbish." And Doug Naylor went into the editing suite and he started to see as it was edited together, as they cut out and they got he saw actually, you know what, with the edit, this is much better than you thought it was. And he said, "Rob, give it another look. We've edited it. I think it's much better than you think. I think it's good enough to end the season on."
Yeah, I think what it is a case of it's tighter because the running around and stuff like that. If they do too much of that, you're just thinking they're just running around in a circle.
Yeah,
really, do they need to do it 3 or 4 times? Once or twice, it actually makes it a bit tighter. Like the driving and the waiting for something else to happen. Whereas a bridge, zoom, boom, chicane, zoom, zoom. Whereas you can imagine when they were probably doing it, they were probably sitting there saying, "Right, you're going over a jump, right? Jump, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Another jump, and 2." So when they're recording it, it's quite slow. It's when they bring it all together and cut out the wee extra bits that they don't need, like the waiting for the chicane or the bumps. Yeah. It just seemed to be one after the other. It was a nice, fast run through of it.
I mean, another thing is it's a nice, in a way, kind of it refers so much back to the pilot as well, because you got Timothy Spall's character talking about, the accident and, what happened to Rim, and the hint that Rim was supposed to be part of it, part of some conspiracy to destroy the ship or something, and there was supposed to be some message for him from Hollister or something.
Basically in his microdot of the bronze swimming certificate, even though he can't swim. But I'm trying to remember. He doesn't ever say he can't swim.
I think
an episode where he's saying I can't swim because he's been on boats in the water, but I can't think of a time he said I can't swim, even though he goes on about his bronze swimming certificate and his silver swimming certificate.
No.
I can't remember any time he said he can't swim.
No. I think maybe
Saul says it's on his certificate, the bronze swimming certificate, even though he can't swim. That's a clue. And I'm sitting there thinking, I can't remember him ever saying he can't swim.
Mm-hmm.
They mentioned the certificates numerous times throughout seasons, but I can't remember any time they've ever said he can't swim.
I think it fits though, because it kind of fits the idea that Rimmer's an underachiever in everything.
Yes.
Or maybe it's just as a rule, usually, maybe it's just for the purpose of this story, everyone who plays this game has a kind of figures out that Rimmer can't swim. And maybe Rimmer didn't figure that out. This Rimmer didn't figure that out, kind of thing. And that's
or he just assumed he was a failure and he didn't even try and swim. I suppose there is aspects like that. But it's just that was the only thing I thought was a wee bit weird in that story.
Another thing is, I feel like another way that you kind of sucked in by the lie is, of the illusion is when Timothy says, like, yeah, the Esperanto was a clue. It was hope defeats despair. That makes you think it's all been a fiction. Because basically, because the Esperanto is the ship that's derelict, and he says,
yes,
why don't you use the laser cannons that were on that ship to destroy the squid? And he says because it's a clue because the ship's called Esperanto, and it's the hope ship, that's the despair squid.
Hope defeats despair. Yeah. But I suppose I took that as him. I suppose he was given exposition of the game as they saw it. But then again, up until that point, nobody had said, well, the ship's called Esperanto. What does that mean?
Well, yeah.
So basically, it's the fact is the acknowledgement the name of the ship is Esperanto, but there's nowhere that anybody just leading up to that is, what does Esperanto mean? Oh, it's Spanish for hope, or it's that type of thing. And it's so there's the clue, so hope defeats despair. But the fact is, yes, I think you know it, that's fine.
Well, I think Rimmer would have known it. But what I mean is it's a lie that makes you it sets you up to think, oh, it has all been a fiction. It's too clever for a hallucination.
Yeah, and
it's kind of pointing out the thematics of the episode, so that it's almost like you feel like, okay, we're in the real world now. That wasn't the real world.
Yes,
and that's what kind of.
And I think that's where it worked as well. But that's what I'm saying. The only wee bit it got from me was when he says about not swimming, not being able to swim, and I couldn't think of a single time where they've mentioned that. But yes, the fact that he explains it when it hadn't been brought up prior to that point, and he kept telling you blatantly that was just a clue. That was it's obvious, isn't it? Because that was the clue. Like, for instance, the microdot on the swimming certificate when you swim, that's a blatant clue. Or the hope defeats despair, that's a blatant clue. And he just tells you things that happened previously that were blatant clues.
Yeah.
That you wouldn't have put together because of that.
Do you think maybe he's one of those technicians, but like he's kind of he's always theorizing about it? Maybe he's kind of that's like Timothy Spall's character is someone who's like
a watcher.
Yeah, a bit of a kind of conspiracy theorist, even.
Yeah,
because
he basically watches things and then just because he's not watched it all the way through, because he's only picked up bits here and there, he's piecing it all together based on what he knows rather than what the story tells him. So I suppose it actually could work for that, but I think it's definitely a strong way to finish the series.
Yeah.
And it was just such a fun episode.
Yeah.
I just thought, definitely perfect.
Mm-hmm. And even the final word, because like the final word isn't so much a reflection of the fact that they've just come to realize the truth of their lives, because it must have been that experience of thinking, what if it was real? What if it had been real? It's none of that. It's talking about the evolution thing, but the afterthought of the implications of the world life they all thought they had, it kind of left unspoken, and you're thinking about it, the viewer's thinking about it, kind of thing.
Yeah, because another aspect of it is the first appearance of Dwayne Dibley.
Yeah.
You can imagine, because after that, anytime anything happens to the cat, it's always Dwayne. Whereas you never see Jake Bullet again.
No.
Or good old Billy Doyle.
No.
Ode to Cat Urine. You see the Ace Rimmer.
Yeah.
But you see the Dwayne Dibley. But in effect, there's no Ternit Crichton, there's no Jake Bullet, and there's no Sebastian. Which you can understand to an extent because they've never. But apart from the alternate realities, the different dimensions they've been in, they've met them. But
well, I mean, Dwayne Dibley's the most absurd transformation of the bunch, isn't he? I mean, like,
yes.
we've seen a Rich Lister before. Rich Lister doesn't seem anything like absurd. And same with like Rimmer. Okay, looks like a bum, but it's like it's not. I don't know. Bums a penny doesn't. But Dwayne Dibley, that's you cannot. Like the Dwayne Dibley is a character in himself, isn't he?
Yes, and the fact that the next Polymorph one, Dwayne Andy's come back.
Yeah.
It's two of the most iconic. And you look at it, that's what I'm saying. None of the other two characters, the Rimmer or Crichton, have got an alternate, an alter ego that made a difference in the show. Yet those two have got two alter egos that people love to see.
Yeah.
And it's just the whole Dwayne Dibley's just the whole monolith. And I got an overbite basically. It's just silly things like that.
Yeah.
You just get some of the best one-liners. Mind you, meant to say in Terraform, one of the best one-liners was, "I wouldn't trust you to open an open tin of sardines." He says when he's talking about his warranty, you're not a thing, mate. You operating me, you're breaking the warranty, and also I wouldn't trust you to open an open tin of sardines. I thought they were good, but back to reality, I think it's definitely got one of the funniest, most poignant endings.
Yeah.
And it's got it's. I think the start was a wee teeny bit slow. Just basically it's the usual, but it wasn't overly dramatic stuff like that. It was just a case of they were going, "Oh, it's like the cat." So wait a minute, he committed suicide. He committed suicide. He committed suicide. And this committed suicide.
Yeah.
There's an ongoing theme here. It's almost a case of even it was a wee bit silly about the cat being his usual self.
Yeah.
There's something here that just seems to be worried, but it just seemed to be at a slow build. But as soon as it hit it, it just went into it with such relish. I think it worked perfectly, and especially in the fact as they open the case and there's Dwayne standing there. And Jake Bullitt, definitely a name and a half.
That's traffic control. I love that.
But see, that was another thing as well. Because he says Jake Bullitt, cybernautics, and Rimmer says, for all we know, that's traffic control. And then he went, cybernautics, he says, that's traffic control. I thought, really? That basically, to me, that showed there was something up with it. Because he says, we don't know, we're still don't get our memories back, but that could be traffic. He sort of nailed it right down to exactly what it was.
Yeah.
And they said the exact same thing. It would have been better if he basically cybernautics, and they said that's part meters. Still traffic control, but so it means Rimmer would have got it slightly right.
Yeah.
But it's the two of them used the same words, and I thought, well, that's obviously showing that something's no real here.
Well, I mean, I mean, how is this hallucination working? Because it feels almost like the hallucination is a shared one, and it's like
a shared. That's what they said. It was a shared,
and it's almost like Rimmer. When Rimmer says that, he suggests it's almost like there's an auto-suggestion effect where that transpires because he said, it could be traffic control. Then that's
what I'm saying. So at that point, when they said that, as soon as the fascist cop said that, I thought it shows there's something wrong.
Yeah.
Because it's something not quite right, because the two of them use the exact same terminology. Yes, it's probably the suggestion that because it's a joint hallucination, because something suggested, it triggers aspects of it. It's only when one person says something the other ones seem to trigger.
Yeah.
With things happening, because they're all standing there and somebody says helicopters, and that's when they all start giving it and that type of thing. And there's a bridge, so they have to say there's a bridge. As soon as somebody says it, they all act like that. So that's why you don't see them suddenly going around the corner like that. It's the fact is somebody says chicane or traffic bumps. then they all experience it. So it's explaining it. So because I've heard one of my friends actually used to say the fact that they have to tell you what's happening, and I says that's because it's a hallucination. They have to tell you because if they're all sharing it, they have to be told what they're sharing. You can't just see them all going bump bump, because if that's a shared hallucination, how do they know what the other ones are seeing? It has to be verbally triggered. But
because like there are moments, aren't there, where like Lister just hears a name, so Rimmer just hears a single name mentioned. Like he just, moment like someone says Billy Doyle or Dwayne Dibley, like it's like the name alone makes them imagine the worst, like the worst kind of character. It's the and just immediately Rimmer has this whole story in mind of what Billy Doyle's life story must be based on his name.
Yeah, and then he triggers it to himself, basically. No, good old William Doyle.
Yeah.
Doyle, and then he owed the cat urine and stuff like that. And then I your brother Sebastian. So it's just there's parts in it you're thinking very clever, and other parts you're sitting there thinking, ooh, it's sort of twisted it a wee bit, because then they're telling you up front that something's changing.
Yeah.
That's us hit the 3-hour mark, you know that?
Yeah.
So what we'll do is, what was your favourite one of the 6?
You're going to hate me for this, but it's Demons and Angels.
And mine, I must admit, is Back to Reality. It's definitely my favourite one of the whole thing. Your least favourite one?
Least favourite? Oh, I don't know if I can answer that.
It's a difficult one, I know.
Right,
I know you're going to hate me for this one, but my least favourite is Demons and Angels.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things. It's just season 6 will see a decided change, but I think season 5 saw that as well. Each season just it changes enough to make it interesting and improves enough. Although I must admit, season 3 I think's been the funniest season. But season 5 has got some of the best episodes and been the stronger season.
Yeah. It's better put together, isn't it?
Yes. They're looking more at the story equation rather than just jokes to keep it funny. So they're basically looking at a story to make it interesting as well as the humour within it.
And I think they're going a bit more cinematic, aren't they?
Yes, definitely. But the more money they get, the more popular it becomes. Right. But before we go, you want to plug your forum.
Indeed. Is it in the chat?
All right. I'm just bounced it in there. I put it in earlier on. I bounced it in there. I will put a link to the forum in the description of this channel.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what do you make of the forum? Because I mean,
I quite enjoy it, I must admit. I've been on it doing a couple of chats. I do like the music videos, as I said. The music, I'm never a great one for music, but in with Doctor Who on it, and they work quite well together. Watching Tom Baker with the good music behind it. Yeah. I just enjoy that, because it's see, when you're like watching something on YouTube, you're watching some clip of the old show or compilation clips of the show. It's either silence or else there's someone talking over it, and you're sitting there thinking, no, you just want to sit back and watch clips. And there's good music behind it as well. You don't need somebody talking over it. You've got good music that actually goes with it.
Yes.
And I do enjoy that, because I'm not a great one for music, but as long as it works with the actual thing, I thought, very well done.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, even the chats, I've put in some pictures in my room, bits and pieces. I've seen other people's collections. It's great just catching up what other people watch, what other people collect, what they like. I think it's actually a very good forum for. I like the classics, and I must admit, I do like chatting to people, seeing what other people. Oh, I like that model. I wonder where they go to that one. Might go hunt for it myself. It's that aspect of it, and just seeing people's collections.
Yeah,
definitely, I would recommend it.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I certainly want to feel like the emphasis is more on, because like I've had a year, I've had the forum a year, and I'm kind of trying to decide on what is it about this forum, what's its USP, and I think it's just, I like to think it's about just memorabilia. It's about kind of collecting information about an event, kind of thing. I feel that's because, and I feel you can do that on a forum in a way you can't do that necessarily in a Facebook post or YouTube. I mean, you can maybe do it with a YouTube video, but
well, see, I think YouTube videos work slightly better than Facebook, because as soon as you post something new, the things just disappear down the list. And if you want to go and look for something else, you have to hunt down and down and down. YouTube, you go into a playlist or whatever and find things. Whereas the forum, there's links to different categories, and you can go into the category and then it tells you. So if you think it was something that's posted a couple of months ago, so I'll go to page 4. Oh, that's the dates. It's just the before that. Go to page 5 or go to page, and it makes it easier navigation, and that's what I like about the forum, because it's easier to navigate. Whereas Facebook, as you put new stuff on, the old stuff just disappears, and unless you're going hunt for it, and you know what it's like going hunting through Facebook, you're just scrolling. Whereas the forum, you can break it up into categories, which is perfect.
Exactly.
So, and that's what I like about a forum, because you can go in, you can read it, and it's got a message forum for keeping in contact with people. Because I know Daniel's on it. But he couldn't get Scottish Davros, somebody beat him to it. Oh, poor Daniel. I managed to get mine PG maybe, so I'm okay. But it's full of interesting bits and pieces. It's full of interesting people who like to discuss the interesting bits and pieces, and it gives me an idea of the next things I want to buy. Now that I've got one or two, I sort of I moved my shelf a wee bit so I could get some Doctor Who stuff. I moved all my DVDs from there down so I could put some of the stuff up there. So I did. Brought my classic stuff. Although that's no classic. That's no classic. That's new.
Oh, the screwdriver, yeah.
It's a Sonic. It's a TV remote control.
That's the Matt Smith's, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I was given that as for my 50th birthday present. And it's sitting there with the instructions. The Matt Smith one.
Yeah.
Right. So all the instructions for it, it basically sits right beside it. Still got the box for it, so I'll put that back later on. I don't want to mess anything up. But yeah, that's most of the stuff I've got is classic. But anytime I get something as a gift, it goes on my collection shelf as well, even if it's something I don't collect. But it is a fantastic prop.
Cool.
So it is definitely a prop and a half. I must admit, I do like it. Even though I've got my Tom Baker one back there, that one is just, it's so weighty and it just feels real.
Yeah.
And it's got some of the nice sound effects on it. Don't use it for a remote control because, no, I would drop it knowing my luck.
Yeah.
And it's all there trying to remember what way to turn it up, down, turn, change channel, if it meant to twist it, am I meant to power forward, back. I just forget all that. I just basically sit and play with it and go boop, 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 boop.
Yeah.
But because my daughter's got the Harry Potter, the wand, remote control. So she likes that. So she's a big Harry Potter fan. She's been reading Harry Potter since first edition. And she gets annoyed when people tell her, do you know anything about Harry Potter? Have you watched the movies? Watch the movies. I stood outside. I had to stand outside with her midnight when they were selling a new book. And I was standing there with her. But basically, she's been reading Harry Potter since the very first edition came out. Book 1, she picked up and she been buying it ever since.
Mm-hmm.
She gets annoyed when people actually tell her she doesn't understand Harry Potter.
Oh, God.
She's a wee bit like her father in that respect. I don't understand where she gets it from. But no, I do like Classic Who, and the Auton Factory is definitely a forum to join.
Yeah.
Link in the description. Sign up. Get chatting, posting, viewing, and enjoying the videos. The videos are I do love the videos. I do like the music videos. That is definitely my favourite part of it. I do like flicking through and seeing all the bits and pieces collectibles, but I do like listening to the music videos. See if I've got 10, 15 minutes, because sometimes I've got a program that's 25 minutes. I know fine well if I start up, I'm not going to get it to the end of it.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
Yeah. Do a wee bit of checking out the videos, watching, do a wee bit of reading, because I know fine well if I stop at that part, I can go back and finish it off later on. Whereas TV, you know, it's like you pause it and try to remember where you were because you switch it off.
Yeah.
Forum. So, thank you again, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks for season 7.
Yeah, you've booked for series 6. You got your panel ready for series 6 or not? Or is that?
I'm actually in the process of that just now.
Okay, right.
But remember I'm on Sunday doing
like 7 series 2. Oh, Day the Earth was still.
The Day the Earth Stood Still and Blake 7 season 2. And I must admit, I do find talking to myself quite boring. So I'm always up for a chat. So remember, tune in next week for season 6. Tune in on Sunday for my movie Blake 7 review, and tune in to the Auton Factory at ProBoards. It's the Auton Factory.proboards.com.
That's the one, yeah.
And Sadako, you want to push it?
Oh, yeah.
You know how to actually what happens and more about it than I do.
The forum, it's mainly caters to Classic Who discussion. I mean, I mean, the thing is, you can start a thread, and within a few posts, the thread goes on a complete tangent, and I let it run its course because I feel like it's nice to let things kind of go organically. I don't like the way of some forums are kind of really regimented, and like someone said to me, like someone who's on there said to me, with some forums, like if I talked about this, they'd say you're going off topic, and it's like, well, no, I like discussion to be free form. I like free form
as long as they're talking about Doctor Who.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. As long as it's Doctor Who, how can you go off topic?
Indeed. Also, a quick plug. I'm on a Blue Bonnet stream on Saturday. We're going to do the Doctor Who writers, because we've been covering several of the classic writers. We've done Malcolm Hulke, we've done Terrance Dicks, Eric Sayward, Robert Holmes. We had to do 4 episodes on Robert Holmes because he's written so much. He was so prolific. And so this week we're doing Chris Boucher, who did he's written, obviously he did a lot of Blake 7, but the 3 Doctor Who stories he did were
the Terra Nation did Blake 7 as well.
Yeah. We will do Terra Nation eventually, but I think we're thinking, well, the thing is we'd have to research a lot of Dalek stories, and would we get sick of the Daleks by the end? So let's do someone else. So we decided on Chris Boucher because we thought, you know what, Robots of Death, Image of Fendal, and Face of Evil, it's we can research them quickly. He's a great writer. His stories are a lot of fun. And they're Tom at his best. So we thought we'd go for that. And we do want to kind of, because maybe kind of new Who fans, maybe we want them to see, be more aware of the best episodes the classic series has to offer. And I feel like, with some of his stories, you can't go wrong.
Definitely. And what I'll do is I'll put a link to Blue Bonnet's channel in the description as well. Go over this Saturday for that.
Yeah.
I'll be there. I always like to listen to classic Who stuff. Unfortunately, a lot of the times when you are doing the read-alongs or the
Script reads.
script reads, or when
That's
you're
on there.
doing watch-alongs, I don't have the time to I come in for bits and pieces, but I'm usually doing other stuff at the time, either doing stuff for my weekend stream or work, believe it or not, sometimes interferes with my streaming.
I have to say, the last script read we did, I played the Doctor in Time Lash. I had such a ball with that, and it was a really fun script one to do. I
do pop in and out when you are doing it, so I pick bits and pieces up, but it's just because I've got so many other things on. It's because I just picked up another load of DVDs, so I have Cribbins, the complete set. That's 2 seasons of Bernard Cribbins' show. Basically, what else did I get? I got Fanboys.
Yeah,
Fanboys is fun. Basically, I'd picked up that one a while back.
Yeah,
but it's region 3 or whatever. It's definitely will not work in my DVD player. So sitting here with that, it won't work. Good copy, good extras. So I had to go out and buy it again. So I've got that, and when I reach 100 subscribers, I've got a giveaway.
Oh, I would never.
A Wen Chiang.
You're more generous.
Sorry?
You're more generous than me. I'm never giving my copy away.
I've got 2 of those.
All right.
Saying that, I've also got the Ark in Space, but you can listen. The wee plastic bit is popped, so the CD keeps on sliding. And rather than actually put it into a black case, I just bought a new copy. And that one there's 2 DVDs, perfect condition. I have got the special edition of that one, so that's why that one's on. So for 100 subscribers, so I've only got another 47 to go. Halfway there. Yay! So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. And Sadako24, much appreciated for your insight. And I will look at Demons and Angels with a bit more understanding next time. I definitely did. There was aspects of it I didn't even notice. And the things you've mentioned about it, I thought, I can see it now. But I suppose it was because I had expectations, I missed them.
Well, I mean, the main difference is when Kat confronts the homicidal Lister, because like you've seen the highs, they assume the best in him, and they don't assume he's a threat. And like Kat, like when he's like being choked, like he just needs him in the bollocks, and that's that little bit of nastiness that gives him the survival edge over the highs, kind of thing.
Yeah, and even the bit where the cat is sitting in the chair and they knock the thing into his neck.
Yeah,
and you see him, you think, yep, he could be nasty. And then he got it off.
Yeah,
I thought was quite good because you could see the cat could be fearsome. Yeah. It's a bit more than his I need to look big.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, but I will definitely have a look at it in a different light next time I watch it. And it'll probably be tomorrow. And basically, I was halfway through Back to Reality, so I might start again and watch Demons and Angels and finish Back to Reality. See if I've seen it with a slightly different view based on, yes, I know fine well I misunderstood aspects of it, and it's a bit more, makes a bit more sense now, but my expectations just, I suppose, coloured my view of it.
Yeah, it happens.
I know, but thank you again, and I'll see you in 2 weeks. Well, cool. I'll see you on Saturday. Yeah. And we'll chat again in 2 weeks. Cool. Okay. Excellent. So remember, ladies and gents, I'm not old, I'm classic. PJ may be out.